Inside the Birds is back. Welcome everybody to Inside the Birds pre-game live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds alongside my Inside the Birds co-host Adam Kaplan. The usual suspects with us as always. We've got our tape breakdown guru Greg Cosell, and of course former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, co-host of the Q&A show on Inside the Birds with Quentin Mickell. We are back at Jack's Bar and Grill as the Eagles season, fellas, is at an early crossroads as they take a 1-3 record into Charlotte to face the 3-1 Panthers. And look, a loss today, and you can officially start talking about a downward slide for the Eagles. A win, maybe you change some perceptions that are going on about you. You start to feel better about yourself, and everybody gets off the coaching staff and the players just a little bit. It is not a great day outside. It's gray, it's overcast, rainy, drizzly, which means it's a perfect day for you to come to Rivers, look at all their TVs, watch some football, enjoy yourself, buy some beers, get some food, place a few bets on the Eagles. If you're feeling lucky today, come see us. We're at Jack's Bar and Grill here in Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. It is an awesome day to be inside and enjoying all the football today. If you are watching this, which of course you are, please share on whatever platform that you're watching on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Hit the like button, hit the share, and also on YouTube, you can leave us a comment in the comment box, and we will try to get to your question or your comment as the show goes along. Fellas, let's start with the big news of the day. The offensive line is once again going to be reshuffled. We expect that Andre Dillard, however, will stay at left tackle for the third straight game. And look, a lot of people always wonder about Andre Dillard. Will they trade him? What's going to happen to him? But he's been very useful for the Eagles. And Adam, you have an interesting note about exactly what went on in the offseason regarding his future.
Yeah, we talked about this before the season started, but I could give it a little bit more detail. So the Panthers were one of multiple teams that called the Eagles in terms of Dillard's availability. And the word that I got and other teams were getting is that he was not available. And I think part of it, Jeff, is what you've just seen with the injury situations. Several of them. You've got the Lane Johnson situation. Because think about it, right? Let's say they entertained a willingness to trade Dillard, and they wound up doing it. Well, right now, with Lane Johnson out, what would they do? Well, you would have Mailata would go back to left tackle. Driscoll would probably be your right tackle. And then Herbig would play at guard, and then you have no backups. It crushes your depth. So now, here's the good thing about them not willing to even consider trading Dillard. His tape right now through 2 games is pretty good. I think we would all agree to that in terms of pass blocking has been pretty good.
We don't have a big sample of run blocking.
No, I know. They haven't. In fact, we may not see that today, Greg. Who knows, right? But the fact of the matter is, the story here is that the Eagles clearly, other teams told me this, did not want to trade him. And I see why now they felt that way. And in fact, one team told me that they didn't even give a price out. They didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
Which tells you they're kind of stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have actually benefited from depth on the offensive line, and it's really shining through for them now, as today in Game 5, they will play their 5th different offensive line combination. Now, when you guys look at the starting offensive line for the Eagles today, what we expect is Dillard at left tackle. Jordan Mailata will make his return from the knee injury. He's going to move over to right tackle. You're going to play Driscoll and Landon Dickerson at your 2 guard spots, and Jason Kelce is like, hey, I've been here the whole time. He's going to stay at center. I think what they did here is choose the best 5 instead of the most comfortable 5, meaning they're going to take Jordan Mailata, put him at right tackle. They're going to take Dillard, leave him where he's doing well at left. And honestly, the quote-unquote weakest link is Nate Herbig. He's going to be a backup this week. Yeah. Seems like that's what they went with.
Yeah, that's the thing is now Herbig will be the top backup interior lineman. So they have that, a guy who has started games, a guy that they know very well and has done a nice job for them and considering what he's been asked to do. But they're at the point now that when you look at their depth, they cannot afford anyone else to get hurt. So hopefully when it comes to Lane Johnson, he'll be ready next week. But that's Thursday. Remember, that's a short week. They play 4 days from now.
Sure. Does this starting line seem to make the most sense as far as what they're doing at the guard and tackle spots, or are you a little concerned about Dillard coming off the knee injury now playing, not Dillard, I'm sorry, Mailata now playing right tackle instead of left?
My understanding is he moved around fine. I know you were at practice and saw him with that brace on. It's his right knee, by the way. He's got a grade 1 MCL sprain. But apparently he moved pretty well, and he has lined up at right tackle before, though we know he's their left tackle. So the good thing about Mailata is, remember, he was cross-trained. And that's a big thing for the Eagles when they draft players. Jack Driscoll could play guard and right tackle. Typically they don't want guys who are just one position players, other than a guy like Dillard, who's clearly a left tackle. As you know, they tried him right tackle. It didn't go very well a couple years ago.
Yeah. Am I being a jerk if I just point out the fact that Jordan Mailata has played football for no longer than 3 or 4 years here? Like, literally just started playing football, and he can go play right tackle, but they got to keep Andre Dillard a left tackle because that's just the only thing he can do.
It kind of helps him, though, because Jordan Mailata, when he came over from Australia, he was able to move around a bunch, and they were trying to find a spot for him to get him on the field to make this experiment work. So he had a lot of reps there. Dillard, on the other hand, we saw what he did at right tackle. So I'm with Jeff Stoutland in his decision. Sure. I think this is the only decision going forward for the team, until Lane is back.
And you're not being a jerk, Jeff, but I will say this. Some guys are just built that way. For instance, Penny Sewell, coming out of Oregon, a left tackle. A lot of people already said he's going to be a 10-year Hall of Fame type player. He played right tackle in the preseason. He was awful. So some guys are just, that's the way it is, because it's a whole different deal with what your plant foot is, how you use your hands. Sure. It's a technique issue, and some guys never get comfortable with the change in technique.
Sure, maybe it just speaks to how gifted and physically talented that Mailata is.
Right.
Do that.
And he's also, I think Jason makes a good point, he's starting from scratch.
Yes.
So he doesn't have a background of, I have 8 years playing left tackle.
Good point.
So now I can, moving to right tackle is a problem.
Yeah, it's like a kid at a young age learning Spanish, and English is their native language, right? They have a memory that's able to retain that, and that's the same way with Mailata. Dillard's been there for so many years. He's stuck in that English language, stuck in that left tackle. He can't learn anything new there. And Jordan, Jason Peters made it clear to me a couple of years ago, just talking to him. He's like, hey, switching from left tackle to right tackle is almost the same as a left-handed batter switching over to right and right over to left. It's totally different hand placement, like Greg said. Like,
Sí, señor. Muchas gracias. Anyway, Lane Johnson is the only player for the Eagles listed as out today. So good health for the Eagles overall. And obviously we always hope the best for Lane Johnson. This will be the second straight start that he's missing because of personal matters. Everyone else is good to go. Jason Kelsey's foot is fine, and Avonte Maddox had a little neck thing. He's okay. Mailata's going to test out the knee. Darius Slade became a father once again this week, missed some practice, and Quez Watkins will play without the knee. It's much different for the Panthers. As we sit here right now, we are awaiting, I guess, a game-time decision on the status of Christian McCaffrey. He is listed as doubtful. Almost normally when you're listed as doubtful, you're not going to play.
He's not going to play today.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He's got a grade 1 hamstring strain, which means it's going to be Chuba Hubbard, who starts again, and then they'll go with, other than that, it's Royce Freeman.
Right.
And the kid, they called up the kid Smith, who's a pass protector for third down. But there's such a drop-off. Chuba Hubbard's a nice player, and Greg tested that from his coaching tape. But the big issue for them, Jeff, is at left tackle. With Cam Irving out, they either go with Trent Scott or Brady Christensen, who's a rookie from BYU, who's a little bit older player. But Christensen, by the way, short arms, about just over 32 inches. That's why most teams thought he'd be a right tackle, not a left tackle.
Interesting.
By the way, I think their O-line, even with Irving, who's not one of the better left tackles in the NFL to begin with, I think that's been their biggest issue offensively, given the weapons they have. But the O-line's been a concern for them a little bit through the first 4 games of the year.
Should have ponied up a little more a few months ago for Andre Dillard now. And now they're looking at a backup left tackle. Also going to be without Shaq Thompson, a very talented linebacker for them.
Really good
How will that impact their defense, Greg, and what they do?
Oh, I think it will impact it quite a bit because he is a movable chess piece. They're a very multiple defense with their fronts. They show a lot of disguise with coverage. Thompson is a major part of that, and he's a great athlete. So I think that's a major loss for them in this game.
Can they do, without Shaq Thompson, can they be what they want to be from their blitz packages, from their coverage? I mean, is this an area where
it's a mentality.
You're thinking you can attack?
I don't necessarily. Yes, can you attack him? Can you attack his backup in coverage and and different things like that? Yes, you can attack him. But the defense coordinator still has the same mentality.
Right.
They blitz the same amount. Just if Shaq Thompson in there is not, they're second in the league in blitz percentage behind their Buccaneers, right? So they're going to blitz us, and whether Shaq Thompson's in there or not, that's what they're going to do. And we've shown with Jalen Hurts that we're not ready for blitzes. And We'll see it. We'll see it this week. We'll see how it plays out.
The difference is this: is we know that Jalen Hurts will leave the pocket, okay, and he'll often leave prematurely.
Yeah.
Shaq Thompson has great speed, and Shaq Thompson can run him down. Because Shaq Thompson, for those who remember, at the University of Washington was a running back and a safety.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So he's got great speed, and he can run down Jalen Hurts.
Kind of like a spiral that he would maybe play.
Some teams kind of do with coverage. It's not a true. It's almost like a lurk and a spy. It's sort of a combination, because they're also looking for short and breaking routes. But he has the speed to run down Hurts, and he won't be there.
All right, so those are the injuries for the Panthers. Big thing to watch for the Eagles is you hope they don't have any injuries on the offensive line today. One of their backups, Sua Opeta, who had started the year on the practice squad, is still on the COVID-19 reserve list. They had to elevate LaRaven Clark from the practice squad to give them extra depth. Now, this is amazing. This is 2 straight weeks where a guy who was on IR and just came back is now up for the game. That was last week with Jack Driscoll.
Right.
And then he had to start at right tackle. So you hope that the Eagles have good help.
Clark's a fascinating guy because I remember when he came out of college and he had ridiculously long arms.
Yeah.
People thought he'd be a really good player in the league. Based on his college tape and based on his measurables, and obviously he's been around the league now with a number of teams and has never really been able to start as a full-time starter.
Right. Well, the Eagles hope he doesn't have to be a starter, but he is available today as a backup.
So if Mulata could not, if something did happen to Mulata, he'd be the right tackle.
Most likely. Imagine so. Yes, he would.
Yeah, because they don't want to move Driscoll back to
or
right
put
tackle.
Brett Toth there.
In the middle of the game. Yeah.
All right. Please, if you're watching this, when you're watching this, wherever you're watching this at home, give us a like, give us a share, give us a retweet, whatever it takes to help make Inside the Birds Pregame Live the most watched pregame show in the Delaware Valley and even nationally. We're going to go break down this game now. We will start off talking about the Eagles' offense. And for about the first 3 to 4 possessions against the Chiefs last week, you might have confused Nick Sirianni with, Lincoln Riley, another Eagles head coach candidate from this past offseason, because it was a very college-like offense, as Adam likes to say. Right from the gate, you saw a lot of motion, saw some misdirection, you saw screens, you saw quick hitters, a lot of things designed, a lot of concept designed to get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands quickly, efficiently, and it worked. I mean, the Eagles scored on their first 3 possessions. They had over 200 yards in the first half. Adam, I want to go back to something that your league sources told you when they watched the tape and how they described the offense. Give me the verbiage that they used.
In terms of
just describing what they saw in those first 3 or 4 possessions.
No, it was pretty deliberate to make Hurts comfortable. Let's come out, let's get it out of his hands quickly, sort of like week 1.
Right.
Very much college-like, very RPO-centric, which they've been for most of the season. But here's the question for everybody here. If this is your offense, where's your run game? Because RPO is not a run game. That's
Correct.
the way it's explained to me. It's not a true base run game. So it becomes a little bit more predictable. I understand it certainly worked for a while against a bad defense. They're going to play a much better defense this week, though. Carolina struggled mightily last week at Dallas against their run game. They have more of a conventional run game. So the words that I got is it's a little bit too much RPO-centric. I understand that helps Hurts, but at some point you got to let him just drop back and see if he can handle it. But right now they're not doing that.
Well, my impression, and I'll ask you guys if you believe, because of the way the game then settled into a little bit more conventional, I felt like that was not necessarily opponent-specific, what they did coming out of the game, but Jalen Hurts specific. Let's get him into a rhythm.
I agree with that.
Let's get him warmed up early. He has struggled the last 2 weeks, and I thought that quicker offense was to help him kind of get into the flow of the game. Did you guys get a different opinion of that?
I think it's fine. I think that's fine. I think that the good offensive coordinators, when they have young players, do everything that they can to get them touches. And from a receiver standpoint, you want Devontae Smith catching a quick screen. You want Jalen Reagor quick screen, Quez. And then the quarterback is also making those easy throws and gains confidence as the game goes on. So I see nothing wrong with it. I do realize that we have to make it an emphasis to run the football. We have 13 rushes from our running backs over 2 games, and that's just absurd. And so I don't think you can go far at all. We can put up these numbers and really not have a chance to win the game like we did against the Chiefs. I don't see anything wrong with getting him comfortable and making sure that he's there in the fourth quarter with some confidence. But they have to drop back at some point.
Isn't that similar to what Andy Reid did with Donovan back in the day? You know, they knew Donovan could sometimes go through some throws of inaccuracy, so we always seemed to try to get the ball out of his hands in the first quarter quickly and get him into that rhythm.
Well, look, what you try to do as an offensive coach is you have to play to the strengths. You maximize the strengths and minimize the limitations of your quarterback. It's all built on the quarterback. They, in a sense, did something very similar week 1 against Atlanta. They came out. There was a lot of misdirection. There were a lot of one-read or no-read throws, because don't forget, a tunnel screen is a no-read throw.
Right.
And even some of the throws where you throw it quickly into the flat are no-read throws. That's where the ball's going. So you're trying to play to your quarterback, and you're trying to get him comfortable. It's funny that people are using the term college offense, because I see tape of pretty much every team in the league, and a lot of teams do this stuff now. So when I see, it's funny, somebody said to me, oh, they used motion. And I'm thinking to myself, God, I watch tape of every team. Everybody uses motion.
Yeah.
It's not, I didn't see that as, wow, something came down from the sky. They used motion. Right. Now, granted, they hadn't used a ton of it, and so they're adding to it, and that's fine. But as we've discussed motion. We don't need to have the same discussion. But motion is the kind of thing that your quarterback has to feel comfortable with. Don't forget.
Yeah, it's timing.
Right. Well, there's a lot of timing involved. So they're playing to what Hurts is. They want to play a little more up-tempo. They want to play with the RPO game. They want to give him one-read or no-read throws, get him into the game. Yeah. I mean, he also made some very good throws last week.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. If you from the second to the third to the fourth quarter, that stuff started to gradually disappear, and it was, to me, a little bit more conventional. I thought he did a good job.
So, after your first 15, so this is how it works. So you get your first 15 plays that are scripted. The coach recognize the defenses they're in on tape. They try to script those plays out, first and second down calls, third down calls. You go off your third down play sheet. And some coaches go as far as having the first 15 of the second half, and they'll create that somewhere in the second at halftime, based on what's transpired during the game. And so when you see Hurts come out and have that success, that was scripted, right? Now, after that wears off, you settle into what you do the most. And therefore, the defense is thinking to themselves, let us weather the first 15 and let us get them back to what they're doing most, and then we'll be able to recognize and capitalize. And that's when you start to see some of the blitz from Spagnuolo.
And one thing to keep in mind, and maybe fans don't realize this, I've had tons of conversations with coaches and quarterbacks. I remember last summer, not this summer, but the summer before, speaking with Steve Young, Carson Palmer. People think that, let's say it's 3rd and 6, that the coach is choosing from 50 plays in the playbook. That's not true. What every coach I've ever talked to, in a given situation, there might be 5 or 6 concepts. That's what the term they use, concepts, and they just get to them from different formation looks. But there's not 100 plays they're choosing from, because you can't practice that.
That many.
Right. So what happens is, Jason is right. You have your first 15 that you really think will allow your quarterback to settle in. Then the defense sees those, and then the game kind of settles into a little more traditional, conventional kind of game, and then you just have to play with what you think are your best plays.
What do you think we know about Sirianni so far after 4 games? Adam, I don't think it's big enough to know that he's not a run proponent or anything, or that he's
that is the toughest thing when we evaluate Sirianni as a play caller. We've seen in weeks 1 and 4, okay, week 1 was obvious when to get off to a good start with the quarterback.
Right.
Next 2 games, he doesn't.
By the way, he ran the ball well in week 1.
I know.
Yeah.
They had a nice lead too.
Right.
Next 2 weeks, a fall off, quarterback, the play caller. Week 4, much better. Everything seemed to be in sync. Problem is the defense right now. So I don't think we quite know what this identity is. There is no, other than running a lot of RPOs, which they do. When you look at the overall offense, I don't know that we know what this thing is.
Right.
And part of it is because they're behind a lot. Because if a game is tight, it's within 7 points, some coaches say we could still run the football. Right now, they're so bad on defense. I think coaches feel a pressure to throw the football. I think that's part of it.
And the other issue is, and I know it happened the week before as well against Dallas, but last week you could take the philosophical approach that, hey, we're going to have to score 30 to win this game, and that running the football. In other words, we're not going to play to shorten the game. We're going to play a track meet game to keep up. Right. They might think today that the game's a little different, that they have some advantages here, and that they don't have to play a track meet game.
Of course. Obviously.
But just getting back to your general point about what do we know about Sirianni, I think some are surprised simply because where he came from down the stretch last year, the foundation of the Colts offense, even with Phillip Rivers, a potential Hall of Fame quarterback, that offense was built on Jonathan Taylor running the football, and actually running the football with Rivers under center a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously we've not seen that really at all with the Eagles.
Well, the first 2 weeks they ran the ball pretty good.
Right.
The first 2 weeks they ran the ball pretty
Right.
good, and then it was just non-existent.
Right.
So you go it was such a drastic change that it made it seem like there had to be some type of outside influence there to me, because it was such a drastic influence. So going back to his coach days in his first 2 games, you know, it's bizarre to me how reluctant we are to run the ball, even versus the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
And there's some conventional wisdom that says, okay, let's limit how many possessions Patrick Mahomes can have, and the Chiefs defense doesn't stop anything well, not running or passing, you know. So it was a great defense to run against.
Do we have time for one more thing?
Sure.
I don't know if people got a chance to see what Brandon Staley said this week about the run game. Okay, it obviously went viral. Okay, and I've been fortunate to get to know Brandon Staley. And I think this plays off the comment that Adam made about RPOs. Because an RPO, even if you do hand the ball off, it's not a physical run game.
Exactly.
And at some point, you know, I know that we talk about spreading the field and throwing the ball, and everybody talks about the way to win in the NFL is throwing the ball. And as a general, just platitudinous statement, there's truth to that. Because percentage-wise, more explosive plays come out of the pass game than the run game. But football is a physical sport, and I love when Brandon Staley said that physical dimension is real.
Yes.
That, to me, was one of the best lines he said.
Right.
And at some point, there needs to be a physical dimension to your offense. At some point.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it always happens in the game. It happens in 3rd and 1. It happens in 4th and 1. Because you can't run on those downs.
Right.
At the end of the game, and that's where we faltered as a team in those critical situations, because we're not in that. We're not built like that. It seems
certainly
like.
don't run in the red zone either, which is another.
Is another critical situation.
Week 1, they ran the ball with both backs 24 times. Okay, and Jason just gave out the numbers, even half that over the last 2 games. Now, you could say in Week 1 they had a big lead, and that's certainly true, and they led for most of the game. But the fact of the matter is, Miles Sanders here is really a talented running back, right?
Yeah.
So you start asking yourself, can he gain well? You and I mentioned this months ago, and we keep
2 talented running backs.
Right, continue to mention it. This staff wanted Kenny Gainwell. Well, that's fine. But Miles Sanders is a better football player, and they're not using him.
Right.
So you have to ask your question, what is the use? Like, what are you doing with Miles Sanders here? That's something I want to see today, because this game should not be a blowout. Knock on wood, it's not a blowout. This game should be good enough where they can run the football, where the coaches don't feel pressure to throw the football.
Right.
Miles Sanders is a good player, and Greg told us this very clearly. Despite what people thought last year, Sanders might have had some of the drop off. The tape didn't show that.
I thought he was better last year, to be honest, in terms of being a professional runner. We know he's an explosive kid. I mean, he was a big time recruit coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He almost left Penn State because Barkley was there.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a big time player.
Yeah.
And I thought last year the tape showed that he ran hard inside. To me, he became a more professional runner last year. Just understanding how you had to get the hard yards, which the Eagles' offense right now, they're not doing any of that.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
I can hear Deuce yelling at him right now.
yeah.
Get inside, Miles. Wait, get inside. I can hear
know
that.
what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
After the loss last week, Jalen Hurts said that the Eagles were this close to being there. You know, he kind of reminded me when Andy Reid used to say we're a hair off, or a hair away. He said we were this close. And you look at his overall performance, for a guy who threw the ball 48 times, there were a couple of balls put in harm's way, but 0 interceptions and no fumbles lost. So 0 turnovers for a guy who had the ball in his hands about 55 times if you count the passes and the runs. Nick Sirianni said it was one of the best games he's seen from a quarterback that he's coached. Adam, we've talked about Jalen Hurts and what you saw last week versus the 2 weeks before. There's no doubt that from a crispness and an accuracy and a ball placement standpoint, what people who watched the game and tape thought was an improvement, a big improvement from 2 weeks.
Yeah, the thing that you would have issues with in terms of if you were grading Hurts over last year and this year is where you're putting the football. We want the pass target to keep going forward. Don't make him slow up. Don't throw it over here when it needs to be over here. Throw with some anticipation or timing. Like we saw that Cardinals game last year, he was really good with timing.
Right.
That's the thing that was better in this game. But Greg, I know you had told me
Yeah,
We were
there's a
talking
couple
days
things.
ago.
Yeah.
There's one specific thing that no one's mentioned before, but I know you caught on tape.
Yeah, and I think this is what, it's not surprising to me, and it needs to be worked on. Look, he started 8 games. I thought last week, in terms of pure throwing the football, I thought he threw it very well. But there's one area he needs to improve, and I'm not a coach, so I can't speak to if this is something that can truly be improved or if it just might be something you live with in his game. And I'm going to read you what I said, because, you know, I take pretty copious notes when I watch this stuff. I said, Hurts continued to show flashes of quality quarterback play in his 8th NFL start. The question is whether he can develop the patience and pocket poise needed to make the throws that he leaves on the field when he breaks down prematurely and drops his eyes. And he leaves a lot of those on the field. Now, it's easy to look at numbers, okay? And believe me, I said this a couple times this week, and of course the social media people just ripped me because they said, oh, he's completing 65% of his passes. He's doing this, he's making good progress. His accuracy last week, his ball placement was really good. But he left about 3 or 4 plays on the field, including a touchdown, because he breaks down prematurely and he drops his eyes. And you cannot drop your eyes as a quarterback.
When you mention breakdown, though, what does that mean?
It means that he perceives or anticipates pressure. That's not really pressure by NFL standards. Okay? And will he make a few great plays running when he does that? Absolutely. But you still have to teach him to play the position from the pocket and go through the progressions because throws were there to be made. So you cannot break down. I used to call it the, you know, the superhero position. Quarterbacks that they break down and they kind of, you know, get into that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And then if you drop your eyes, you're done because then you can't then raise your eyes and go back and see things.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Greg. There was a play last week where he literally dropped his eyes and started running around in circles in the backfield. And then he ran over to the right and he gained a yard or 2 or whatever it was. But in that play, if you can do 2 laps in the pocket, you can throw the ball. You can get the ball out to someone. And so that was one play that he talked about. When he says he's close, now hear this out. Ertz overthrow. Right, that's a touchdown. Yeah. First quarter.
Oh, to wide open Ertz.
Wide open Ertz on the seam ball. That's a touchdown. So that's 4 points left out there. Ertz pick play to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Perfect route by J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. All he has to do is look back. Right. That's a touchdown off the board. Right. Devontae Smith push out. That's receiver play. Got pushed out of bounds, but he came back in and called the touchdown. Right. That's 3 touchdowns there, and the Greg Ward drop on the Q8, the sprint right option. That's 16 points right there. Right, that you would have with 4 touchdowns that were off the board. So I can see when they say he's close. Right.
The problem is they keep doing this.
He missed one more too.
Did I miss one more?
He missed one more because the play right after he missed Hurts.
Yeah.
They had a great design on a cover 3 beater, and Smith was open on the in-breaker. I don't know if you remember this play. And this was a play where he broke down in the pocket. There was no pressure on him. He broke down and he missed it, the TD opportunity to Smith, who was wide open. It was a classic cover 3 beater. You know the route I'm talking about. They ran number 2 to attack and threaten the safety on the over route, and then they ran Smith on the in-breaker. And he was wide open. And he just broke down and he didn't throw it. So again, we're not saying he's bad. You know, the way coaches should do it, okay? And I'm talking about what I've learned from coaches a lot smarter than I am over a lot of the years doing this, is you're trying to make the quarterback play the right way on every snap. We're not just here to say, oh, we made a couple of really good plays. Okay, you're trying to get him to play the right. That's what coaches, don't you agree? That's what coaches should be doing.
Yes.
So all we're doing now is evaluating Jalen Hurts. Okay, we're not sitting here saying, oh, he's no good, you know, because you're going to get the usual, oh, you're haters, you know, the guy's playing great. No, we're evaluating him the way coaches should be evaluating him to allow him to become potentially a really, really good player.
And we're talking about efficiency. Right? The highest chance, right, in order to get that big play, become a consistent offense, doing it the right way, reading progressions, and rather than just the low percentage play of running around, making a play here and there.
And he'll make enough of those so people will think, wow,
he's doing
he is great.
But he's leaving out a touchdown for a 10-yard run.
It's going to be,
that's the thing.
It's going to be fascinating in the offseason if the season continues.
But overall, he's doing. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Would you
what they do?
Given what he was coming out of college, okay?
We're winning.
Where he is right now, we're definitely ahead of the game with Jalen Hurts.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's fascinating in the offseason with all the draft picks they have and with all the movement that's going to go on. Do Jeffrey and Howie and Nick Sirianni sit at the table and say, we have this, but then there's that, and then they got to evaluate
What are you
one
talking
versus the other.
about if Watson?
It doesn't even matter if it's a Sean. It could be anybody. It could be Aaron Rodgers. It could be anyone.
He's taken a big jump. Obviously, guys are telling us that he's leaving throws on the field. We were aware of that.
Right.
And Greg just illustrated why. If in 7 or 8 weeks, these things are fewer and fewer and fewer, now you start talking about him being the guy next year.
Right.
Sure.
That's why they wanted a full season to evaluate him, see the progress, and he continues to make progress.
Yes, he does. All right, speaking of progress and him leaving throws on the field versus protecting the ball, we're going to talk about a Jalen Hurts today that's going to see what we expect is a lot of different pressure from the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
He's going to see blitzes from his left, from his right, from the center, because their defensive coordinator, Phil Snow, is known for bringing that heat early and often. The Panthers are number 2 in the NFL in blitz percentage, behind only, of course, who else? Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, that guy wakes out of bed and throwing up blitzes. So here's a look at how the Panthers have fared so far with their blitzes. They're second in blitz rate. They're number 1 in sack rate, number 1 in quarterback pressures, number 3 in quarterback hits, and 5th best opposing quarterback completion percentage against them at 58.7.
Now, that's all true, but the one thing we need to understand, look at the opponents of the first 3 weeks and look at last week.
Yeah, last week.
And that unfortunately, these numbers, when I got
They're
them earlier
skewed.
this week,
Right.
they don't, if you just look at last week, Dak Prescott scored a touchdown pass on every 6 attempts.
Yep.
I believe with J.C. Horn out, okay, he broke his ankle, he broke his foot. Justin Burris is a starting safety. There are going to be plays to be made here if they can protect Jeff. There are plays against the secondary because Stephon Gilmore cannot play till week 7 at the earliest after the trade. Henderson, who they just acquired, didn't play a lot last week. He may play more this week, but he's a guy who's got to learn their defense. So there are going to be opportunities here to beat the secondary. It's A.J. Boye who's starting. Dante Jackson's a good player. A.J. Boye, talking to the Panthers, they want to be their third quarter. Now he has to start because of Horn's injury. So there are some opportunities here for the Eagles to move the ball in the air.
All right, so the Panthers, thanks to a soft schedule, as Adam just mentioned, they have the 3rd best overall defense in the league and the 5th best scoring defense. But I want to go back to what they do from a blitz standpoint, Greg, because I remember in week 1, we were talking about Dean Pease being a master at disguise and deception. What do you notice about how Phil Snow likes to attack the quarterbacks?
Well, he does a lot of the same kinds of things. They're very multiple with their front looks. There's a lot of where they show pressure and then back out, and that you'll see a lot of that, I think, today, because what you'll get is not only the offensive line then has to react to that because they have to identify people, but Jalen Hurts then also has to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what you see is teams, and Panthers are very good at this, showing pressure, and whether you check or whether you just have a concept that works against pressure, and then they back out, and that concept doesn't work. So I think and then you force Hurts to have to read it out. Now, a lot of this happens in longer yardage situations.
Yeah.
Obviously, on first down, normal down and distance type situations, you're not going to see a lot of this. But the other thing that they do bring to the table is they can rush off the edge with 2 very good pass rushers.
Yeah.
So Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
And Burns is on his way to becoming one of the really good pass rushers in this league off the edge. He's long, he's angular, he's flexible, he can bend, he's explosive. He's a difficult matchup.
Jason, I know you were disappointed last week in that play before halftime where the Chiefs brought, what was it, A-gap pressure and it caused the fumble.
Caused the fumble,
You were upset a little bit about the call, but
they run the blitz.
Oh, yeah.
And they got home on that blitz was the first play of the Cowboys game, the Panthers, and they almost got a sack, but Dak scooped it to Zeke Elliott for a little gain. But it was the same blitz, just to the opposite side, that caused Hurts trouble.
What was the breakdown to you? Because you mentioned Jason Kelce in it, but you also talked about Jalen Hurts' responsibility.
Jalen Hurts, responsibility. Me and Q talked it over a little bit, and I was blaming Jalen Hurts, and I was wrong on that aspect of it. And I said, Q, he still has to know where his running back is, and if his running back is picking him, if he's picking him up to get into a better play. And Q said, no, that's the running back totally. So I was like, okay, I can see that. So I stand down on that play. Okay. I stand down on that play.
Well, but the thing that you'd be concerned is it's the same running back today, and it's the same, offensive line scheme.
The hardest part for me is this. It's what Adam said earlier, is that Kenneth Gainwell is in that situation before half. Miles Sanders is a veteran now, and why is Gainwell a rookie in that situation right before half? And those are the things that you have to kind of wrap your mind around. Are they trying to prepare Gainwell over Miles, right, in those situations? Because he's not going to be able to pick up these blitzes that are coming from the Panthers today.
This guy was a wide receiver in college.
It's going to be tough,
Pass protection was not Kenny
Gainwell was not a wide receiver.
I joke out that they used him as a receiver.
But the other thing you might see today, and they did a bunch of it last week, is you might see empty sets. Because empty sets do a couple of things. Number one, it forces the defense to expand and widen, and then things have to be declared a little earlier. And then the other thing it does is it gives you tendency predictability of coverage, because most defenses do not play 5, 6, 7 different coverages versus empty. They might have 2 coverages they play versus empty. So you're giving the quarterback more information before the snap of the ball.
Gainwell, we should say, he's their 2-minute back, their 4-minute back, their hurry-up back when they're behind, which they've been, and that's why he's in. But the pass protection thing is something we need to see from him, which we're going to see, because I know Sanders is playing more snaps, but that's not really relevant in terms of the touches. They're almost identical last week. I'm fascinated to see what happens here with Gainwell and Sanders going forward in terms of touches.
Go ahead.
As far as Hurts is concerned, and the blitz that he's going to be able, the thing about the Panthers, they like to play, like Greg said, line of scrimmage, right? They have their backers a lot of times in A gap, like playing around, digging around in that situation. Right, so this is going to be a test for Hurts to see, okay, will he get us in the right check? Will he be able to recognize and call out the right Mike, him and Jason Kelsey, right? These are things. He struggled against the blitz, especially versus the Cowboys. He got that last sack before halftime was a huge sack. Took us out of a potential chance to score against the Chiefs, right? So these are the things that teams are going to do against him, and today is a great test to see if Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts can get on the right page against blitz.
Well, just one final point about that. Here's a note I made.
Yeah, real quick though, as Cecil Snyder mentions on our on our chat box,
he's been blitzed. He's been blitzed a ton on 3rd down. Okay, so that's a big factor. And it's not just Hurts, but he's a big factor. Right. But the Eagles have been blitzed a ton on 3rd down through 4 games.
Sure. Okay. When we talk about their blitz schemes, is there anything that are they a cover 0? Are they an overload? Are they a double A gap? Where do they?
Well, they're an overload. There's double A because they do put people up on the line of scrimmage. The question is, will Thompson's loss impact some of the things they do? Because Thompson does a lot of things for them. But they're definitely an overload. They'll show it on one side, come from the other side, and that's a very difficult thing to deal with. Or they'll show it and then back out. So there's a lot of things that mentally they needed to prepare for this week.
Is Jeremy Chinn's usage a giveaway at all? How do they use him as far as what they do from a blitz perspective?
I'm sure it is, in being totally honest, because I don't study it quite the same way coaches do. I'm sure there are tells and indicators, but he's used in a lot of different ways.
He's a good player.
He's a really good player.
Yeah.
He would have been the Eagles' pick if not for Jalen Hurts last year. That was the guy they were going to go with.
Yeah. That brings up a whole bunch of what-if scenarios, right? That even would go back to last year on how they would have been different. All right, so
who would be the quarterback right now?
I don't. Well, it might be Carson.
Yeah.
Depending on how things went.
Who knows?
Yeah. What a crazy world the NFL can be. Let's turn the tables here and talk about something that's been not so good lately, and that's Eagles defense, specifically the run defense. As we have seen the last 2 teams really line up and ram it down the Eagles' throats, and you kind of have to wonder what's in store today for the Eagles defense, and really for Jonathan Gannon, who came under fire after the deal out at least 40 points in 2 straight weeks. That has not happened since all the way back in the Chip Kelly era, so it actually isn't that long ago. But nonetheless, it's not a good thing. There's a lot to unpack, from the defensive line alignments and formations to the linebackers to pretty much everything, secondary. I almost don't know where to start because they've been so kind of loose on defense from top to bottom. So, Adam, I know that we reported way back that Jonathan Gannon, what he was going to do was to bring a defense that was going to be predicated on deception, disguise, mixing and moving, matching in the back end, a lot of 2 deep shell coverage, which we've seen. But this guy was hailed as one of the rising young stars in the industry, and I know that right now it doesn't look that way. Are you a little surprised at all just on anything that you haven't seen?
The biggest surprise to me, Jeff, is the lack of aggressiveness. We saw it in training camp. You and I were there a lot. Greg, you were there. I saw you at training camp.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? A lot of disguise, a lot of late movement. Okay, this is what we were told would happen. Week 1, we saw some of that. After that game, nothing. These last 2 weeks is about as vanilla as it gets. Remember when I was joking 2 weeks ago that they should bring Chris Maragos back, he could stand 30 yards back. Because that's what they're doing. I don't understand it. I don't want to say the guy's coaching scared, but that's a little strong. But when you really look at it, what is he doing to impact the quarterback? This is what we criticized Jim Schwartz last year, how vanilla they were. So
I'm sure Jason has some thoughts here too, but there's there's a couple of macro points here before we get into maybe more specific stuff. The defense, the way it's been played the last 3 games, is a very static-looking defense.
Yes.
And when your defense is static, it's much easier to attack from an offensive perspective.
Right.
Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, because Gannon is not stupid, okay? You have to ask yourself, why is he doing this? Now, I'm not there every day. Maybe you guys talk to people. I'm not there every day. Okay, I'm grinding away in my office at NFL Films, watching tape of as many games as I can. Maybe he feels, and I don't know the answer to this, that he has to play this way now because of what he has. And I can't, because look, if he felt he could do all these other things and do them well, why wouldn't he be doing them?
Well, I will tell you this. I was there. I did ask those questions to Jonathan Gannon, as did other members of the media. We will have his response in a second, but I'm going to let Jason.
All right, so I got to try my best not to get too far ahead of myself when it comes to this.
Remember, it's a 2-hour show, Jay. We already.
Like Adam said, this is the most vanilla defense, and I will go as far as to say is that it's looking very scary, right? And maybe it's because of what Greg said, a lack of personnel, that he doesn't feel equipped enough in order to run some disguising, maybe some blitz. Maybe his guys are not picking up the defense the way that he wants, and he's afraid in practice, so he doesn't show. My only threat to that or counterpoint to that would be is that in the game it's a little bit different. You got to give the players an opportunity to mess it up in the game, because this is what I learned. There are some guys that get it right every time in practice and mess it up in the game. And then there's guys that freaking mess it up every time in practice and it works in the game. Right. Because some guys are gamers and players show up in the game with the adrenaline and everything else that's going. So give the guys a shot. For God's sake, let the fans, us that's watching the game, the people that's evaluating the game, say, oh, okay, I see why Jonathan Gannon doesn't like to run blitz or doesn't like to run cover 1. We can at least live with that, but I can't live with this cover 2, cover 4, give up as many yards as possible. They can run it on us, they can throw it on us. For what can you stop?
It's funny.
What can we stop?
Right. It's funny. I think I remember Doug Peterson pretty much saying that the Philly special never worked in practice, and then of course it worked in almost the most important, and no doubtedly the most important time ever in a game.
At least stop something.
Right.
Let's live with that. Let's start there. Let's stop something.
Yeah. Well, you guys both raised a good question. Is he not comfortable with asking players to do certain things, or is he comfortable in year 1 being patient right now for the promise of a better tomorrow? I asked him that question specifically at his press conference this past week. Here's what the Eagles defensive coordinator had to say.
Guys, I don't have a scheme. Our scheme should be put our 11 guys on the field in the best position possible to succeed. So I have to do a better job of that, because right now it's not showing up where, hey, are we doing that? With what I'm calling and how we're playing right now, how can we be a little more successful? And just because I like something or the coaches like something, if the players can't execute it or it's not the best thing for them, throw it away. So, and that's the first month of the season. We've the last 2 games, we're continuing to figure that out, as we go. And we need to figure it out fast, because we can't keep looking like that. I know that.
All right, after that answer, I did ask Jonathan Gannon about putting the best 11 on the field, and I specifically said, is this the best 11 for what you're trying to do? And he assured me that it is. You listen to some of his players, and you wonder if they're on the same page about that. Let's start with this. What do you see? What do you guys see as the biggest breakdown right now for the Eagles defense? Good, I'll start with you.
Breakdown?
Yeah, what's the biggest thing going wrong?
It's not a breakdown per se. To me, it's the way in which he's playing. And the word I used before, and I had this conversation with some people this week, it's so static. See, the last thing you ultimately want to do, unless you have great players, like you can go back to Seattle playing cover 3 with the Legion of Boom. Their players were just better than yours.
Right.
But if you're going to line up essentially in split safety, okay, and split safety can be cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, cover 8. These are just terms, but it's all split safety, okay? Eventually, not eventually, teams know how to beat this stuff with their route concepts, okay? And unless you're going to get really good pressure on the quarterback with a 4-man rush, because they don't blitz either, then, which they're not getting, by the way, for the most part, then you're just giving the routes a chance to develop and find the voids in a very static, stagnant coverage look.
Sure.
Okay.
How much is being the opponent being ahead of the sticks all the time because they're running the ball well have to do with that?
That's a problem too.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, last week, Edwards-Helaire's, all his 10-plus runs were the exact same concept because they found something in the Eagles' defense as the game progressed. They ran to the slot every single time because what they saw was that Maddox was carrying the slot. So now you're taking a run support defender out of the mix, and all his 10-plus yard runs came on the same play.
Right.
Because Maddox was removed as a run defender.
Sure.
So all I'm trying to say is that the defense is and I hate to use this word because I know how fans are going to react, but we're just talking football right now. It's a predictable, static-looking defense, and offensive coaches in this league are pretty smart. It's not that hard to attack it with your concepts.
Yeah, I agree. Here we go. So listening to you talk makes me think that maybe Jonathan Gannon's flexibility may not be there. The reason I say this is because when you have a certain group of players that doesn't fit what you want to do traditionally, in this defense you need bigger you need bigger defensive tackles, which we don't necessarily have humongous defensive tackles. You need a really flexible guy that can stop the run, stop the throw down the seam, that type of guy, that Urlacher, that Derek Brooks, that bigger guy that can roam, can do a little bit of both. We don't have that guy. We don't have aggressive corners that like to play at the line of scrimmage, i.e. Peanut Tillman and those guys that punch the ball out, those types of players. We don't have these aggressive players that you need for this conservative defense. It's a players-driven defense. We don't have that, so he hasn't changed his game up and started playing football with these particular players, which lets me know that there is some inability on his part to be able to adapt to the players that he has.
It's an execution defense as opposed to a scheme defense.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things we had heard about what Jonathan Gannon wanted to do when he got here, knowing the personnel that they have at linebacker especially, was to be a stunt 4-3, or be able to move those linemen, stunt them, slant them, get them across the offensive line so that they're redirecting the run to the outsides and not letting it go downhill. But I don't see that yet in his defensive line structure. Do you?
Well, ultimately, what you want to do if you're going to be a front 4-based defense, because that's what it is, okay, then you're going to need to line up in different fronts, multiple fronts. You're going to need games like you're talking about, stunts. You know, you're going to need to show the offense multiple looks, which the league is now. The league is a multiple front league right now. Very rarely do you see teams just line up in the same front.
Correct.
Okay, they play a lot of 5-man fronts, 5-man reduced fronts. By reduced, it means that two linemen line up essentially as 3 techniques just off the guard shoulders, and then you have what's called a 0 technique, head up on the center. So they line up in a lot of 5-man reduced fronts, which, by the way, is a huge trend in the league. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Now that, but by the way, that can pose some problems because you only have one stacked player now, one stacked linebacker, and that can cause some problems in your run game.
Sure.
Which he needs to be a player.
right. That guy needs to be a player.
He needs to be a player.
I'm just going to ask
What did Jonathan do today?
Well, first of all, Jason's right. I had asked someone who's doing advance on the Eagles, this team's playing them in like 3 or 4 weeks. So what do you think of their defense? Because I said, we're exasperated here with this thing. What do you see? He goes, They don't have the players on defense. I mean, he's pretty certain about this. This guy played in the league, so he knows what he's looking at. He goes, he doesn't have the linebackers that could really run the scheme the way he wants it. Although they're only playing 2, I don't think they have the size to do it. I mean, Singleton's a great story, but is he really a starting linebacker?
He's got good size, but the question is,
average size.
Yeah.
But is he a good enough instinctive, blow up a play type linebacker? Is he a playmaking linebacker?
Can he get around the offensive tackle?
He's not a forceful player.
Right.
When we talked about there's a point in the time to run the football, there's a point in the time as a linebacker where you have to go up and blow up a guard and be forceful and be physical. And he's not that player.
He doesn't have an Anthony Barr, okay? Guy's a long, rangy,
big guys.
Really cover guy, strong side linebacker. Kendricks is an absolute superstar middle linebacker. I know that these guys, you just can't find them off the street.
Right.
But the Eagles simply have not invested enough at their linebacker position where you go, you know what? I can win long term with these guys.
Right.
Do they have that one linebacker?
Well,
do they have that
if
guy
you're
now?
going to play this defense, and maybe he just wants to establish what he wants the defense to be, and don't forget we've played 4 games, guys.
That's
so
the patience that
let's
right.
I mean, we know it's not going well now, but we've played 4 games. Maybe he wants to establish the principles of his defense, and then ultimately they get the better play. Now, it's always easy to say, well, you got to play to your defense. Well, they don't have a lot of great players on defense when you get right down to it. I mean, he's trying to do some of the similar things that Brandon Staley did a year ago with the Rams, and Brandon Staley had Jalen Ramsey. They had a player named John Johnson, a safety who's now with Cleveland, who when you talk to people in the league and watch his tape, he's a really, really good player, like a really good safety.
Right.
They don't have those guys, because you need linebackers and you need back-end guys.
Right. It basically sounds like he's coaching to the limitations of the personnel.
Right.
Which is, I get it, but at some point, Jeff,
yeah,
you've given up over 80 points in the National Football League over 2 weeks, most in the league. Either you adjust to your players or you can't run what you want. He's trying, but I'm interested to see what the approach is this week.
I think it will be interesting to see if he tries to play. We know in week 1 against Atlanta, when they were running the ball well, he got Eric Wilson off the field against 12 and 22 personnel. Started to play Sean Bradley a little more.
Edwards
as well. He played both of those guys against Atlanta. We'll see if maybe he tries to get a little bit bulkier today and puts those guys in earlier in the game. I know people have asked about Davion Taylor. I don't think that that's the solution. This is a guy who, A, lacks experience, and B, he's more supposed to be a fast coverage linebacker,
that's what he
not
is.
a downhill linebacker. So he's really not going to help your situation that's afflicting you right now, which is stopping the run. I do want to ask you guys a little bit more about the front line and Fletcher Cox, obviously a big story this week in the media. But first, we're going to talk to our friends, or hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, including the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, if you do go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right, so Fletcher Cox and the entire defensive line. First of all, I think, Jay, you mentioned it, like a traditional cover 2 defense, not that they're playing that pure, but usually you do see that type of mammoth defensive tackle, 310, 320, maybe even bigger, swallows up those double teams at the zero or the shade. The Eagles don't have that, and they also don't appear to be doing some of the things that we thought they'd do to redirect the run. So you see guys like Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. One of them is having a great year from a pass rush standpoint. The other guy, Fletcher Cox, not having a great year and coming under a lot of skepticism. Are you looking at this and saying, well, this guy is not in position to succeed, or this guy probably could be doing a better job but just doesn't like the environment around him right now?
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? So let's look at it from this standpoint. This defense is causing Fletcher to sacrifice more than he's probably had to sacrifice in a long time.
Quite a while.
Right? So when you have a defense where the defensive line has free reign, and he said it in that interview that he's used to getting off the ball and being able to go where basically he wants to. And this year, he has a little bit more responsibility in the run game, a little bit more responsibility when it comes to sharing in the rushes and things of that nature. So I think it's a tough pill for him to swallow. But I want to hear what these two gentlemen have to say about it.
Well, first of all, he's played multiple spots. Go back to the Chip Kelly. He had to play a similar spot.
Let's start with the fact that, as I mentioned a moment ago, the league now is about front multiplicity, okay? That's the way the league is. So no one plays one position on the defensive line, okay? Players on every team play multiple positions. We've seen, as I mentioned as well, these 5-man fronts. That's become a big trend as well. So in a lot of 5-man fronts, what you have is you have someone who's playing a 3 technique, or it can be what's called a 4-eye, which is literally a foot or 20 inches or 2 feet at most from a 3 technique, just moved a little closer to the offensive tackle.
Right. Yeah.
These are where he's lined up a lot. It's not a big difference. Now, offenses might see it as a little bit of a difference in how they block it, but that's not the point. The point is it's not a big change as far as a defensive lineman. But the overall point is you're going to line up in different spots along the front. That's the way the league's going. That's what you have to do now because you can't simply line up in the same front all the time.
Right.
One of the larger issues to me is when teams run the ball against the Eagles in their nickel. And teams line up in 11 personnel an awful lot, 3 wide receivers, so you're playing your nickel. So if you're going to play with a 5-man front, and we discussed this a moment ago, you're only going to have one stacked player in the box. And that causes all kinds of gap issues, particularly against cutback runs. You don't have enough second-level defenders to play the run game if you're going to play a 5-1 front.
Yeah.
Right. And as you've seen, the Eagles have not really been effective in any of those formations against or groupings against the run.
It appears that he's not sold. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say his responsibilities have definitely changed. There's no question. But it's not like he hasn't been asked to do this. We did this under Chip Kelly, remember, when they went to 34?
What he's responding to, and maybe he didn't say it quite this way, is in a 5-man front, in a reduced front, and Jason just hit on this, you don't have free reign just to go up the field and play.
Right.
You have more sort of stay-at-home responsibilities.
Right.
Because I mean, without going into all the stuff that people can't see, and I can't break down with film,
Sure.
a 5-man reduced front, he's playing really with more inside responsibilities.
Right.
He's not, even if he lines up as a gap player, he's not truly a gap player in the sense that he can just fly up the field.
Right, which is basically what he has done for the last few years under Jim Short. Go get that quarterback.
So you can see some of his frustration, right? Because now you're being asked to, and I remember, you know, back in the day when J.J. Watt was going crazy in Houston, a lot of the guys around him, though he was going crazy, had to sacrifice. A lot of guys did not like playing with him because he had so much free reign, and he was the beneficiary of that and played that way. And sometimes maybe Fletcher was that person on our defense that had that free reign, and now he's being reined in a bit in order to make the defensive scheme work. And it sounds like he's not sold right now.
True. Now, you said you could see it. You could also hear it. Fletcher Cox did have a press conference this week, and he did speak candidly about how they're using him and how he feels about it. So let's hear from the 6-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle right now.
I mean, from a scheme-wise, some things are different. Obviously, you know, last year we was able to kind of run off the ball a little bit, you know, more than what we're doing now. We play with, you know, different styles of defense, two different coordinators. So, I mean, now you see me sometimes in a 4-eye. So that's a big difference for me.
How do you think you're playing so far this year?
I mean, I can be better. I know I can be better. So, I mean, that's the problem that I got to fix and embrace whatever that we're doing and make the best of it.
All right, that was a very candid Fletcher Cox about the different responsibilities he's being asked. Now, he did not say, and of course he's not going to, that he was frustrated or that he can't play it, but you can kind of read the body language, and you couple that with Darius Slay coming out this week and saying a few things about, it's not me, here are my stats, I'm good, and you wonder about veteran buy-in when a young team like this starts to lose and things downward spiral, which makes today's game even that more important, knowing you got the Super Bowl champs on Thursday. But Adam, here's the complexity. These guys were talking about fit and age and things like that. If memory serves me correct, wasn't his contract restructured?
It was, and there were a bunch of voidables. The contract expires after 23. The contract as is easy to trade because he's only making just over $1 million in the next 2 seasons. But the problem is the dead money.
Yeah, easy for somebody to take him on, right?
Right, exactly. But the problem from the club standpoint is the massive dead money, the acceleration of the signing bonus proration. It's so massive. I don't see how they could possibly do it this year. I don't want to say it's impossible. You could always do anything you want if you structure a bunch of contracts just to be able to accommodate a potential trade. But we've talked about this. Fletcher Cox is not the same player. He's still good.
Right.
Now, he's not playing the wide nine anymore, where he could just get upfield. This is a completely different philosophy. And he acts like, if you hear him talk, he sure sounds like he's not totally comfortable with doing this. And Greg just outlined really what he's being asked to do. Sometimes in your career, you're asked to do different things. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, but the complexity is that they're well under the salary cap now, to the point where you can look at this contract and say maybe you didn't need to restructure that one, knowing you were changing your schemes, knowing you had Javon Hargrave, who is year 2 now into a 3-year deal. And as you just mentioned, to be able to, if you get rid of him before 2023, you're taking on a whole bunch of dead money. Now you say that almost makes it impossible. We thought that about Carson Wentz, but the difference is, a lot of veterans, Brandon Graham, got restructured. Other veterans, too. And I know the cap goes up, but so does the dead money.
You really want to get out of restructuring so many veterans because it's fine when they don't retire or they don't regress.
Right.
But when you restructure aging players, you saw what the Eagles found a cap loophole with Jeffrey. Like, they were able to somehow get through it, though they took on dead money. They were able to get through it. But as you just said, they restructured Lane Johnson several times, Fletcher Cox. You start running out of guys to restructure. And by the way, some players said no, as I understand it. Not every player said yes to restructure.
You see the Zach Ertz situation.
No, I was going to say, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say this. We've played 4 games. Okay, what was the Eagles' record last year?
Last year,
4-11-1.
It was 1-3-1, I think.
No, last year.
Just overall, 4-11-1.
All right, 4-11-1.
Yeah.
So the Eagles were a bad football team last year.
Yes.
Okay? They made coaching changes. Brand new philosophies, brand new approaches. We've played 4 games. Okay? I know with social media, with Twitter, with everything, people want everything to happen instantaneously. I mean, we're now at the point in training camp where, you guys, you literally tweet about every single play like the world's coming to an end. We've played 4 games with a brand new system. Veteran players, and Jason can speak to this, veteran players who are used to doing things a certain way, when a new coach comes in, particularly a younger coach who doesn't have a track record, it's not like bringing in a guy who's been a head coach for 10 or 12 or 15 years who has a winning track record. There's going to be some push and pull. Okay, I think I would say that's pretty normal.
It is.
Okay, now whether it plays out in the future, we can't answer that. But I think we have to be careful about making final definitive judgments about all this stuff after 4 games.
I agree. Remember, 2013, Chip Kelly's first year. Say what you want about how you feel about Chip. They started off 1-3. They had a 3-game losing streak. Their defense gave up even more points than this Eagles defense has. And as the year went on,
wasn't also
they
Chip
improved.
Kelly's first game that Monday nighter against
Yeah,
Washington, where they ran like 50 plays in the first half, and everybody was saying, "Wow, he's revolutionizing the NFL."
Right. And then they lost their next 3 games.
Right. So you got to be careful about these
Totally
judgments.
We had better players.
Greg, you live here, okay? You live
Yeah,
here.
I know what the fan base is. Of course, I get all that.
All right.
But I also sit and watch this stuff with every team.
Got it.
All right, as always, we thank you for watching Inside the Birds Pregame Live with Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. And now we are going to hear from our friends at Rivers Sportsbook and Casino.
This is my city. This is a city that knows how to play. A city that's in it for the win. So I go to the place that gets that. Where they know how Philly likes to play. And where I know my seat is always ready. This is my place.
All right, we're back, and as we head into hour 2 of Inside the Birds Pregame Live, we are going to put forward our weekly segment with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Mickell that we call Q's Views. In this episode of Q's Views, we talked about the Eagles arriving at a crossroads today, and as we've been talking about now, how do you make sure the veterans stay bought in? All right, we're here with former Eagles safety Quentin Mickell, star of the Q&A show with Jason Avant on the Inside the Birds platform. Q, the Eagles are 1-3. They're headed to Charlotte for a very big game against the Carolina Panthers. How big does this become, knowing what the schedule looks like for the rest of the season?
Well, yeah, this is a huge game in the sense of the Eagles being 1-3 to really try to keep pace with the rest of the NFC East and to even put themselves an opportunity to give themselves an opportunity to make it to the playoffs. They definitely got to win this game because it's going to be a tough gauntlet from here on out. We're basically in the middle of that gauntlet right now, so. It's a very, very important game. It's one the Eagles not only need to win, but one where they need to show some progress, show that they're starting to understand the schemes that they're in, understand, how to, for instance, attack the blitzes, how to play and tackle well on the middle of our defense. Our linebacker plays got to step up. So I think it's a pivotal game, not just in terms of making sure we win this game or don't lose this game, but also how well we play and how well we execute on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, the team has a lot of veterans, Q, and they always say that when things start to downward spiral, that the veterans are the ones you have to kind of watch for not checking out. So does this game become even more important just to make sure that everybody is still buying in? And how do you think the veterans so far, based on what you've seen, are adapting to the new coaching staff?
Yeah, I think the jury's still out a little bit on how they're adapting. It's still early in the season. I don't think it's at the point where the vets are going to say, "Hey, this is it. Let's start planning our vacations." I think they still feel that they're part of it and they're still in it. So that part of it, I think, at this point in the season, I think there's still some life left, so to speak, in the vets on the team. I will say this though, there's not a ton. I wouldn't say not a ton, but especially on defense, a lot of the vets are new to the team, new to the area. So I think that will definitely come into play towards the end of the season. As we all know, the Eagles fans are not very, to put it lightly, they're not very easy on this team when they're not successful and when they're not executing on the field. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, especially with the new guys. When you get, the new vets, when you're not used to the fans being so active and on Twitter and social media and really getting at you, I think that's going to definitely come into play if things don't turn around. So we'll see how it goes. But as of right now, I think they're fine.
All right. What would be the biggest change that you would make to this Eagles defense, which has given up 40 or more points in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think to me the biggest change has to be linebacker play. They definitely need to be more active against the run. We've seen a huge amount of I wouldn't say missed tackles, but just non-attacking in the middle. I think our linebackers need to get more downhill. I think we need to bring the safety in the box a little bit more. I think we need to mix up the coverages and we need to play some more man. And I've said it from the beginning. We need to blitz. We need to be able to add pressure in some kind of way. You can't just rely on your front four that are really learning a new scheme. We talked about it on our show with Fletcher, taking double teams and not being used to having to play a gap. And so I think adding some pressure, linebacker play, getting more downhill, and mixing up the coverages and the defenses in general is going to help this team much. I think the defense is good enough to where if we change it up scheme wise and we get our linebackers playing more downhill, more aggressive against the run, I think we'll be okay. But again, it hasn't been seen in the first few games, so hopefully, this is the turnaround game.
What do you think the defense misses more? A big mammoth kind of nose tackle like lineman, or just a bigger, stronger, more downhill linebacker?
I think it's the linebacker position. When you're talking about, you got Hargraves who's playing at a high level, you got Fletcher who's still a great player. Obviously, losing Brandon Graham not kills us, but hurts us tremendously. And I said that, we were going to miss him a ton. And since he's been out, you've seen teams running the ball on us a lot more. teams throwing the ball on us a lot more without much pressure. And so I think the biggest thing is linebacker position has to be addressed. Those guys need to get more downhill, especially on first and second down, and put opposing offenses in third and long situations and situations where, they can't just kind of have their way with the middle of the field. I mean, even, passing game wise, the middle of the field is just, it's been like a vacant hole all season, and it's really got to stop.
Speaking of blitzing, which you would like to see the Eagles do more of, the Carolina Panthers, their opponent today, only number 2, only to Tampa Bay and Todd Bowles in their blitz frequency. They're hitting quarterbacks. They're among the best defenses in the league. A lot of pressure schemes. What is the key for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense today to combat this?
To me, the biggest key is study. Get with your offensive line, get with Kelsey, get with the quarterback coach, and really start to understand and break down what you're seeing on the field. Pre-snap reads, slowing the game down, dummy calls, sit hut, try to get them to show their hand. Just little things like that. All the little small things that you pick up as a quarterback in this game as you grow and you learn, those are going to have to be reinforced with him, especially this week. And really, to me, the biggest thing is when you play a team that really blitzes a whole lot, you have to keep an eye on the safeties. You have to keep an eye on the mic and the outside backers, because they'll tell you everything you need to know. So, once I see a safety walk in the box, okay, now it's possible he's coming to this side. Let's switch to protection. Let's know where my hot route is. Let's learn where my outlet is. And, to me, I've always said too, with Hurts, once you drop back, if we're, let's say we're in third and long or whatever, and you see pressure, once we drop back and your first read isn't out there, if you feel pressure, just get the hell out of there, man. Just take off and run and get what you can, because that right there will make a defensive coordinator second guess whether or not he wants to blitz next time. So I think being able to, again, study the tape, learn, where the safeties are, learn where the mics are, and then if it's not there, if you don't like what you see, just take off and run. It's okay.
All right, well, the Eagles did not get into the win column last week, but you did, as you predicted the Kansas City Chiefs, as many others did, to win the game. So the time is here. Eagles-Panthers today. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, because while I do feel that the Panthers are a good team, I do feel like they do some good things well. They're missing McCaffrey. And let's face it, the teams that they've beaten aren't really world beaters. So I think the Eagles definitely have a chance this game. To me, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair for the Eagles and Panthers anyway. I say the Eagles win this one 21-17. That's my
All right, he's
prediction.
back on the Eagles bandwagon. Quentin Mickell predicts the Eagles to win. You've been watching Q's Views. Big thanks to Quentin Mickell, and listen to the Q&A show with Quentin Mickell and Jason Avant every Thursday morning on the Inside the Birds platform. Thanks, Q.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff there from former Eagles safety, Pro Bowl safety, Quentin Mickell, who is on this show with that Q's View segment. He'll be back again Thursday, like we're back on Thursday, to preview the Eagles versus the Buccaneers game. Also back are our friends at Public Square and Rebel Hill. The team of James and Zach are behind the controls, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, or anything else you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. All right, as we continue on, as we look at this game between the Eagles and the Panthers today, and again, I don't think I can stress it's early, Craig, you're right. But when you know you've got the Super Bowl champs on a short turnaround on Thursday, and you've already lost 3 games, and now you have to go on the road to beat an upstart 3-1 team, you start to see it in a bigger picture and realize today is a very important game for the Eagles.
Yeah, and no one, and I realize what I said before. Probably people are hating me right now.
No, perspective's important.
Because no one wants to hear about rebuilding. Certainly not in Philadelphia. We know that. But in a sense, that's what they're doing.
Listen, Adam and I have been adamant going into the year, and we took abuse too. Anybody who dared to say the Eagles are not going to be that good of a team kind of got criticized, but we felt 7, 8, 9 wins tops.
7 or 8 is what I
was what the Ross, not just an opinion, but Eric Wilson, nice 1-year contract. Anthony Harris, okay, good, plug the hole, 1-year contract, right? The league tells you why guys get 1-year contracts.
Right.
It's because the rest of the league didn't see you as a high demand type player.
That you just made a great point, and I make that to people all the time. And the guy that fit that and doesn't relate to the Eagles, and then we'll move on, was Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky was told by the league, you're not a starting quarterback.
Right.
So therefore he had to sign in Buffalo to be a backup. Because the league told him you're not a starter.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. No, I mean,
you're absolutely
your
right.
point is 100% correct.
They signed what I called placeholders, steady eddies, but as we talked about on the defense, outside of Darius Slay and his reputation, they do not have a number of playmakers, specifically on the back end.
On the back end.
7, yeah.
Linebackers
Back 7.
and DBs.
Right. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Speaking of a playmaker, an unknown playmaker, as we shift our focus to the Carolina Panthers, Sam Darnold has become the latest in a trend of players to move away from Adam Gase and all of a sudden see a regeneration to their career. The former Jets first-round pick has more passing yards than Josh Allen, more completions than Aaron Rodgers, and more total touchdowns than Lamar Jackson. He's also had the luxury, as you guys mentioned, of a pretty easy schedule so far. Texans, Jets, Saints, none of those teams are over 500. Greg, I'm going to start with you, though. When you watch the tape, what are you seeing from Sam Darnold here?
Well, I think you have to start with Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
That's where you have to start. Because Darnold, despite the fact that a lot of people think of him as an athletic player, he's really a timing and rhythm player. The longer he's in the pocket, the less effective he is. Every coach tries to do this. Some do it better than others. Mm-hmm. What he needs are defined reads and defined throws so the ball can come out within the timing and structure of the offense. Now, on first down, normal down and distance situations, you certainly can do that. It's when you get to third and long, long yardage, it's a little different.
Right.
Because Darnold gets stuck in the pocket the longer he's in the pocket. And he still has a tendency to be reckless and undisciplined when he leaves the pocket. So those would be his negatives. But he's playing with such a much better sense of timing and rhythm, and I attribute that to the structure of the offense, which, and by the way, they've got very, very good weapons.
Sure, we will talk about those weapons. But obviously, Adam, you knew, and you were kind of what was the philosophy in the offseason for why the Panthers decided to move on from Teddy Bridgewater, who has had some success around this league and is doing it now with Denver, to get a guy like Sam who was kind of at the bottom of the barrel as far as how things were going last year?
They want to be a little bit more expansive. Teddy Bridgewater is kind of a safe thrower, doesn't turn the ball over. They felt that there was too much checking down. In fact, they wanted him off the roster so much, they're paying part of his contract in the trade to Denver, so that tells you they didn't want him. Now, they tried to get Matthew Stafford. They were one of the few teams in it. They were in pretty deep. Mm-hmm. He went to the Rams, but they wanted him. They were in it for Deshaun Watson, but we know where that is headed right now. But once they kind of looked at it and said, you know what, Darnold will be our starter this season. They rolled over his 5th-year option, so he'll be the starter next year unless they trade him.
Right.
But in the end, May and June were not great for Darnold because he was learning new offense. But I'm going to say we're on the 2nd week of training camp. The lights started to go on in terms of this offense and the scheme and getting his relationship with Joe Brady developed more. Just the timing, he was getting out more, just faster. Because he was struggling with processing in the offseason in May and June, and the reporters that were there were saying that. But it was much better in training camp, and he's not turning it over. And Greg, talk about this. When he's not doing well, he gets that deer in the headlights look. He stares, and he's not sure what to do with the football. That's not really happening right now. And the good thing for him is he's accurate, he's healthy, and he's getting it to DJ Moore. And the funny thing is, without Robbie Anderson, we thought it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
It's been the exact opposite so far, but it's working.
One final point before Jason jumps in, because he's got to talk about this. People need to understand Joe Brady, before he went to LSU, he was there at LSU when they won the national championship with Joe Burrow.
Sure.
He had been with the Saints the previous 2-3 years.
Yep.
Right.
So he basically implements a lot of the methodology and concepts of the Saints offense. So that's what it kind of looks like.
Joe Brady, who also interviewed for the Eagles head coaching job this offseason.
Right.
Yeah. Are you buying Sam Darnold?
I think it's Joe Brady as well, right? So me watching their last 3 games, I fell in love with what Joe Brady's doing. And it's in his track record, right? Ohio State, Joe Burrow doesn't get to play there, transfer to LSU. Joe Brady's there. wins the national championship with him. Terry goes to the Carolina Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater, failing NFL career, becomes a productive starter, gets some value out of him, goes to Denver, doing well right now. Joe Burrow right now is doing well. Sam Darnold coming from the Jets, maligned, come here, doing well right now. All of this points to Joe Brady. And so I think that a lot of Sam Darnold's success is a history of success that comes under Joe Brady, and that's what I'm seeing on film.
Sure, absolutely. Going to be a head coach, I'm sure.
He should be
sooner than later.
There's a common thread here, whether it's Nick Sirianni with Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold with Joe Brady. They're coaching to what these guys can do well.
Right.
That's really good coaching, and that's what we're seeing here. Sirianni's done a good job with Hurts. There's no question about it. You see what works and what doesn't work. You shrink out the things that aren't working. You keep the things that are working. But this is the first time that you're going to see most likely a heavy blitz package. This is what Phil Snow does. He did it when he was at Temple and Baylor. Remember, Phil Snow used to coach the NFL with the Lions many years ago. So he's seen everything. RPOs, he's seen every type of offense. I'm just fascinated to see what both teams do here on defense.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, no, I can't remember what I was going to say. But hey, that happens when I get old,
when
you know?
You get to be 80. It does.
Yeah, and I'm going to take us back just a second, but it's a good thought. I just want us to think about this.
Okay.
Right? We see how complex and how Joe Brady's able to use multiple different players in order to make up a scheme that's fitting the player, that helps the player. Why can't we get the same thing from Jonathan Gannon?
Oh.
And that's why I say sometimes it's about maybe an older defensive coordinator or someone with more knowledge to be able to adapt the system to the players that they have, instead of having a general philosophy that I have to plug players in order to be successful. And that's what I see the difference with Joe Brady. In comparison, like if you're just doing I know it's the wrong side of the ball, but
no, it's a good one.
But it's coaching.
I
remember what I was going to say. So
that senior moment?
Yeah, I did have a senior moment. Yeah, I had a senior moment. You know, when I look at an offense, and you see it with Andy Reid, I'm seeing it with Joe Brady, you see base concepts that are really not difficult, executed really well over and over. Like, for instance, when teams play zone, there's a concept, and Jason can speak to this, called high-low, okay? It's in everybody's playbook. Sure. But when you watch the Panthers on offense, you know, a couple of weeks ago they played the Texans, who play a ton of split safety, and they ran high-low over and over. You know, and you see these base concepts just work really effectively. Like Andy Reid runs flood over and over from different formations. It seems like it works every time. You know, the good coaches, it just seems like the basic concepts work.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't have a brilliant answer for why that's the case, but when you watch Joe Brady, it just seems there's an efficiency to the pass game that allows Darnold to get the ball out to the right receiver at the right time. Now, it might not happen today because of who they're playing, but I think teams probably think, hey, let's put some pressure on Darnold.
Yeah.
And make him have to play faster.
Sure. Hold that thought, Jay, because I know what you had just said about Jonathan Gannon. One thing I want to point out is that for whatever Joe Brady has done, DJ Moore with Sam Darnold has taken a big step up. I mean, the fourth-year wideout right now is at the top or near the top in a lot of receiving categories.
Yeah.
30 catches is second in the league, 398 yards, third, 3 receiving touchdowns, tied for second, 21 first downs, second in the league, and 43 targets, fourth most in the league. And you factor that and the receiving success, you bring up the fact that they have Robbie Anderson. They've now started to use Tommy Tremble more, the tight end that I think you liked coming out of Notre Dame.
I did.
As a pass catcher, right? So they've got some weapons, and of course when Christian McCaffrey is healthy, they use him as a running back and a receiver. I don't know what they're going to do today, but Jonathan Gannon during the week kind of talked about why he doesn't have a dime package to avoid situations like we saw against Kansas City where Eric Wilson is matched up against Tyreek Hill, but he said he's not comfortable using a dime. And so you wonder if Joe Brady today is thinking, well, I know what I can do then if they're not going to use a dime.
No, because Greg was talking about the static defense. You kind of see that you have a template of what they're doing. They're playing 2 deep safeties, right? Playing they're splitting the safeties, but they're playing cover 2. They're trying not to give up the deep ball. That's the one that's been consistent even in week 1 where they play great defense. They're still playing 2 safeties far back, so you're taking all the in-breakers. Well, if you're not going to change that up, that's where DJ Moore has been feeding off of. It's run after the catch, run over the middle, and he's going to take it long. So I'm fascinated to see if he's going to change up.
If you're not going to play dime, then one of the things you will see today, even though DJ Moore has predominantly been their boundary X, the single receiver to the short side, you could well see them line up in what we call 1-by-3 sets, where the tight end is the single receiver, and they put Moore or Terrace Marshall as number 3 to trips, because then he ends up running routes in the short area in particular on a linebacker.
We saw that
and a
with Tyreek
linebacker
Hill
has to match up.
Right.
At some point, you have to match up, even if you're in zone.
All the plays are same. It's just different personnel and formations, right? So if a tight end can run it, a receiver can run it.
Right.
So if you have that guy and you put that tight end over there, you have it's the same place, trips concept. The tight end ran it yesterday, but now DJ Moore is going to run it today.
Right.
It's the same concept.
Can you guys both, help me understand why you'd rather have a linebacker out there in predominantly nickel instead of either a corner? And I get Zach McPherson has not played a snap in the NFL, but you have Craig James on your practice squad. He has played. You also have a third safety in Marcus Epps, who is considered a coverage safety. How is that a better solution to have Eric Wilson out there than one of those guys?
Dime, Dime is a passing defense, right? Because you just want more. You want more. DBs on the field.
Yeah, more speed.
And it's so weak against the run. It's really weak, and we're weak against the run in base defense, right? So I can see from a defense coordinator standpoint, it's like, hey, maybe I don't have the horses to play dime, and we're not good at it. We're not good at it. We're not good at stopping the run either in any fashion.
Yeah.
Now, but you're talking about longer downs and distance.
There were a couple of third and longs in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
right,
I feel like every defense has a dime package.
Yeah.
They may not love it, but they have it because you need it.
Dime means then that a safety, it's predominantly a safety,
right,
is going to be a box player.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, and again, it's easy to say, why don't they do that? But if you think of who they have, I don't know who that guy is. It's not Epps, he's a back-end player. It's not Harris, he's always been a back-end player.
Yeah.
It might be McLeod, but he hasn't played a lot of that in his career.
Right.
You know who brung Dime back? It was a couple years ago when the Rams made it to the Super Bowl.
Phillips?
Was it a few? No, it was with the Mark Barron and what was the kid from
Wade
Florida
Phillips'
State?
defense, right?
Yeah. But they would go dime
Mark
a
Barron,
bunch.
right.
They would go dime a bunch. Was that time? Yeah.
They
would go heavy dime.
Yeah, I'm just saying, aren't you situationally dime when you see that they're going to match up Tyreek Hill in the middle?
You can be. I mean, that's a philosophy, and now it's easy to say it's. I guess my point would be it's easy to rip it because the defense has not played well, but you have to have a player who can fill that role. Like we just mentioned, Jason just mentioned Mark Barron. Mark Barron was a safety who became a linebacker, and essentially he was a hybrid kind of player, and he could fill that role. You need someone who can fill that role.
Almost as if you need to draft safeties, perhaps, or hit on
or
corners or linebackers. I mean, you're. Listen, I'm joking.
Oh, that's a cheap shot. Come on, Jeff.
It is absolutely not a cheap shot.
That's the truth.
Absolutely the truth.
right,
This
right.
team does not draft that. They don't draft well when they do,
But
and
Jeff,
they just don't draft it frequently.
That brings up the question, which I wanted to get to at this point when you talk about the future. Will the philosophy change? I know Greg said we only played 4 games. That's fair. But at the end of the 17-game season, if it continues to go on this path, will they change the philosophy for the first time in 3 decades? Not the first round, but do they need to invest more picks on defense, particularly 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round?
Well, there's no question, even after we play 17 games, no matter what the record is, they're not going to have a dominant starting linebacker or a dominant safety.
Right.
We know that. This is the personnel.
Right.
So the question is, as you go forward, assuming the coaching staff remains the same, is what kind of value do you place on those 2 positions?
Exactly. That's
There you go.
Right.
What do you think would benefit them more, the big 320-pound tackle or the bigger downhill linebacker?
Well, what they have right now, probably the linebacker and the safety. Yeah. For what they have right now, because you got a guy in Fletcher who's going to be on the roster next year, according to Adam, right? Because of so much dead cap money. You have those players, so you have to spend it on a linebacker. But this team isn't hitting on the picks that they, like right now, we don't have a guy we can play through on the outside. Wide receivers, they're not hitting on it. So this team has been taking them. Why not take another one? So when you don't hit on picks, you have to do it over. Right. So and now it makes some of your secondary needs less important.
And that's why they keep drafting receivers, because of Arcega-Whiteside's miss, though he's blocking well, but that's not why they drafted him.
Yeah.
With Fletcher Cox, it's not that they can't do it. It's the pain that you have if you trade him in terms of dead money. You could trade any player.
Yeah.
But they could not get active like they wanted to in free agency because of all the dead money on Wentz's contract. Yeah, they signed, as you said, a bunch of guys on one-year deals. But to make that big splash in free agency, it's going to be difficult if they try to trade Cox.
And the one thing that stands out, too, because I watch tape of other teams, like all of a sudden the Cowboys have a fast defense. You know, you can see it. I watched Cleveland this week. They have a fast defense. The Eagles' defense is not fast.
No.
And I think it's funny when you ask Jason the question about what do you need. I think you need speed at linebacker and at safety.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not talking. You don't need 4-3-5 guys. That's not the point. But the point is they don't have any speed in their back end.
They also miss a lot of tackles, I feel.
I agree with you. You need speed, but you need, if you're going to run this defense, this particular style defense, you need a guy with speed, but he has to be flexible, meaning that he can play the run and the pass equally as well. Right. So you need a special player, and they don't have a special player.
Right.
All right, well, that's on Howie Roseman and the front office this offseason to figure it out either through the draft or free agency. All right, please check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. And you can find them at PHLSportsNation.com or on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. The inactives, I assume, will be coming out fairly soon, and we'll be able to see if there are any surprises. We're still kind of shook from last week in the Lane Johnson news, where Adam interrupted my read.
Yeah,
turns out it was for a good reason, so I'll give him a free pass on that.
Hey, Jeff, I wanted to make sure I get into DJ Moore too.
Yeah, go ahead.
On what I've seen on film, these 3 games from him, and this again is Joe Brady, right? Yes, he lines up at X a bunch, but they use him in a myriad of different ways to get the ball. They'll line him up in the backfield, get him lined up on get a matchup problem on a linebacker. They use him on fly sweeps. They motion him a bunch. He's fast. He's quick. So the thing is that makes him different from like the receivers that we have. He's 6 foot, but he's 210. He has the size to be able to do a bunch of things. He stops really well. And the best aspect of his game is what Adam said. His yards after the catch, right, and that has to do with just being able to free release a bunch. He gets a bunch of free release because of motion, because of where he's lined up in the slot. Sometimes Joe Brady's doing a great job of putting his players in position. We didn't know DJ Moore was this talented, but with Joe Brady on it and with Joe Brady and moving him around a bunch of places, it just makes me want this for the Eagles. Watching the tape with DJ Moore, it makes me want this for the Eagles. And so I get jealous watching this.
I'm sure also in his 4th year, a contract year, DJ Moore
but
is
he's
very impressive.
He's done well up to this point.
He has.
It's just they're winning games now. You know, he came out of Maryland, and I remember watching his tape, and I really liked his tape. 6 foot, 210. He ran really well at the combine. I think he ran a 4.4, and that raised his profile. But his college tape was really strong. I mean, he's just a good player. The numbers this year are better because of Brady. But if you look at his numbers the last couple of years, they're pretty good.
They're moving in the right direction. And you know what? You know the thing is, I love about him too. He's aware. Meaning, as a receiver, he knows when to break things off and when to play ball. Those types of things. He caught a touchdown against the Cowboys of just him making a play, a little scramble, getting to the right area. We haven't seen those types of things from our receivers. And like I said, it makes me a little bit jealous.
Gotcha. I got you. We got the inactives?
Yes, we do. There are 5 of them. Gardner Minshew, Mac McCain, Lane Johnson, of course, Jack Anderson, and Marlon Tui Polo 2. So 5 guys.
So no major surprises.
No surprises this time, no.
By the way, to your point, Maryland been putting out some pretty decent athletes in the NFL for a few years. Didn't Stephon
They don't
Diggs
play
go
well
Maryland?
as a team.
Yeah, they're like Pitt. They put out a lot of really good players that don't win anything.
They got a receiver now who's hurt, who's a really interesting player.
What's his name?
Dante Demas.
Oh, okay. And the quarterback is Tua's cousin?
Yeah, he's been bad the last couple of weeks.
He's been bad?
He threw 5 interceptions against Iowa 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Well, you can't do that. Iowa stinks.
I mean, more.
I had to get
well,
my
I guess
shot
they're better
in.
than Penn State, though.
Yes.
Yeah, can barely beat a team with a backup quarterback.
DJ Moore, Jeff, is on pace for 120 catches. I mean, he's always been good, but this is another level.
Right.
Yeah.
And Joe Brady knows how to use him, and with the space the Eagles are giving up in that zone, unless they tighten it up like they did against Atlanta in Week 1, it's going to have another monster game.
Well, let's flip that conversation and talk about the Eagles, because Jason said he's jealous about the usage for DJ Moore and having that kind of weapon. Now, Devontae Smith had his best game as an Eagle last week, and it would have looked even better if he didn't step out of bounds and was able to get that touchdown. But I do wonder with this offense, it's been so spread out and varied, does it have a go-to guy right now. Is there, and does it need one? When you look at their offense, Jay, do you feel like this team needs someone to establish himself as the go-to player, as that third down reliable target? Or is it good being spread out the way they've been?
They're starting to shake it around now. Like I'm looking at the targets and things. Devontae Smith is clearly their #1 target right now.
Yes.
And then it's coupled with more guys. They've had Rager high-end targets at 20. And Quez Watkins is starting to rise. He had 7 targets last week. He only caught 3, but he had 7 targets last week.
Right.
So I think that they're trying to put it together, and this is a first-year team. A lot of younger players. Nick Sirianni is trying to figure out who's the most valuable. But again, Adam, Greg, all of us can agree that they're most valuable players. The matchups they have is going to be Dallas Goedert. He's always going to have a matchup problem, and so we need to focus on him a little bit more. Devontae Smith, you need an outside presence in this league, so you have to focus on him, and he's the best receiver we have amongst the ones that we do have.
Right.
And Miles Sanders not getting the playing time and feature that he needs in order to be successful. But I think it starts with Dallas Goedert, and I think that's where it should go. Not necessarily Devontae Smith to start, because the matchup nightmare is going to be Dallas Goedert. We saw it last week. Did you see the play that they called back? Him beasting the guy. He was a better player than those guys that were trying to tackle him, and we need more of that.
No Shaq Thompson. Remember, no Shaq Thompson today. Would he be a coverage guy on tight ends, Greg? You think?
Not very often, because they like to use him as kind of a movable chess piece wild card.
Yeah.
You'll see Chin matched on tight ends a lot.
Chin.
I was going to say, though, I thought Devontae Smith really looked good last week.
He did.
And the best compliment I could give him is I thought he looked like he did at Alabama. I thought that his route quickness and his separation quickness at the top of his route stem were really good.
His releases are incredible.
It is, and he's doing a lot better when it comes to, like, this is a 7 from the outside. He wins on this route every single time. It's a stem release inside, you're vertical for about 10 yards, you snap it out to the sideline.
Right.
They took advantage of that route a few times last week. And we need to do more of those types of things where it's longer down the field, because he can get beat up a little bit if it's going to be that 5-yard range, just hand checking.
Right.
But as he gets to run, that's when you can't stay with him.
Yeah.
Because he is that long strider, like Greg said.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni went kind of on and on about Devontae Smith's jab step this past week, comparing it to the Allen Iverson crossover.
Yeah.
Well, he had a great route, too. I believe it was against Mike Hughes. It was in the third quarter, I believe. Where it was on the right side of the formation, where he stuck in the ground and Hughes kept running. And I don't know if you remember the play.
Right.
No, he's looking good.
In general, when you guys watch the tape, do you feel like the receivers, specifically on third downs or when they need to play, is there enough separation just on its own, or does the scheme really need to come into play here? You're making a face like, no, you're not seeing it.
Well, remember, this is an interesting conversation we've had today. When we say there's a time you have to run the ball, Brandon Staley, right? And there's a time we have to be physical at linebacker. As a receiver, third down, fourth down, man coverage press, when there is no coordinator to help you out, there's no Brady, there's no Nick Sirianni, and you just have to win on a slant route, we're not doing that a bunch because our guys are a little bit smaller and they don't have the tact yet because they're so young in order to win in those situations.
That's why I'd like to see Goddard out at the X position like they've done in the past, because he's their one big physical pass target. It's really the only one, because Arcega-Whiteside's not a part of it. He's there to block, which sounds funny. But that is where Goddard, Jeff, could really do some damage. You don't find tight ends who move like him, as big as, and plus he's also an excellent blocker.
Yeah.
You know, situationally, who they used last week, who won his one-on-one matchups, dropped one, was Greg Ward. We saw a reappearance of Greg Ward, which he can win in some of those situations.
He wins
and
on those shorter routes.
Yes.
On that potential touchdown, was that ball accurate enough where you felt as a receiver should have had it?
He could have made that play, because there was a play later in the game, I believe it was Devontae Smith that dove out and made the same exact play. So he could have made the play. Did he need to be perfect like that as far as the throw? Because that was a defender on your back, lay it out in front of the receiver in order for him to go and make the play. He could have put that ball on the body. Yes, he could have made a more accurate throw. But could he have caught that? Yes, he could have.
I felt it was more on Greg than on Jalen. Like, you're right, you could have, but he had both of his hands on
he has to make it knowing that he's not going to be targeted as much. It's the same situation I was in. I'm going to get 4 targets a game. I got to make sure I catch all these targets that are coming my way. And when you have that mentality that you got to go hard like it's the last play of the game because you're not going to get that many opportunities.
Did you feel that as a receiver, anytime you got your hands on the ball, it's mine, it's my fault if I don't catch it? Or how would you assess the situation?
You have to live in the place as a receiver that it's my fault. One, because if you start blaming the quarterback, you're going to be fired quick.
Sure. No, I
right? You're not going to be throwing the ball.
And you're not going to be throwing the ball, right? Because like you're going to be viewed as a cancer, but it helps you out mentally as a player that it's always on you. And your teammates kind of respond to that, and they begin to take ownership of it, and it makes you a better player because you holding yourself to a higher standard. So that's why I say he got both hands on that ball. He has to come down with it, knowing that he's not going to get as many targets.
I want to reiterate something that Adam and I had reported during training camp, because the same person, one of the same people who talked to me, said it again this week, that Miles Sanders looked like a Pro Bowler at training camp this summer. So if for whatever reason, because you're hearing that maybe the coaches don't prefer him or they want to go with Gainwell, I still think this has all been situational. I think we're going to see more than 11 carries from Miles Sanders today, and if it doesn't happen, I'm wrong, and I'll start to believe what's being said on the outside. But you saw in the red zone where they've kind of had their difficulties, even though they have the 10th best red zone in the league. It seems to be some games are good, some games they're not, some games are good, some games are not. But I wonder if Miles is not getting enough of an opportunity there, just as a straight runner. Run the ball in the red zone. And I don't mean, when you're at the 20 or the 19 or even at the 1 or the 2, but in the red zone, people still talk about the importance of being able to run the ball in this league.
I would answer it this way, and again, I think this speaks to the fact that we need some time. I wonder, as a first-year head coach, second-year coordinator, first-year quarterback coach, okay, if they're trying to figure out the balance between getting the most out of Jalen Hurts, which they feel is in the gun, with a lot of what, right or wrong, are called college principles, versus an NFL run game.
Right.
Okay? Because you can run out of the pistol and out of the shot? Of course you can.
Sure.
But if you really want to establish a true physical presence with a run game,
go under center.
Then you go under center and you work the play action pass game off that. Now they may feel that's not Jalen Hurts' strength. So they may be having these philosophical discussions about what do we want our offense to be, and normally those discussions end with the focus on the quarterback, not on the running back. So I'm not defending them.
I agree.
I'm just saying I'm sure they're having these kinds of conversations.
Right.
And as they're going through the season and seeing how it plays out, look, they could easily look at last week's game, okay, against the Chiefs and say, that was pretty good offense.
Yeah.
We scored a lot of points. Our quarterback was pretty darn good. And you know what? So what that Miles Sanders isn't getting 18 carries a game? They could easily look at it that way.
Then it comes back to that physicality. Still,
then you have to decide how you feel about that.
You scored 30 points, you did well, but for 1 week. But are you a physical enough team?
You saw Gainwell earlier in the season, Jeff. Was it against San Francisco? He got that goal line or carry
against
within the 5
Atlanta,
yards.
actually.
Okay, he got a carry in the red zone inside the 5. That was a physical carry for a guy who's only 200 pounds.
Right.
And that was really well blocked, too.
Okay. Sanders is about 15 pounds higher. Oh, by the way, the Panthers are going to go with, they're going to move Taylor Moton, this is a surprise, from right to left tackle. Now, he took snaps in left tackle in training camp. I was there when he did it. It was their preference to leave everything the same, but they're not going to do it.
Who's going to play right tackle?
Brady Christensen, who was more of a right tackle prospect out of BYU.
BYU, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to play right tackle. So that's interesting that they're doing that. So they're making 2 moves here. We'll see if the Eagles could take advantage of it.
Well, and Taylor Moton is their best tackle. I mean, overall, right? Even though he plays right side. For what they have right now,
he's just okay.
Yeah, but
he's a franchise player.
He's their best. That's my point.
Tells you.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with it. It's just the way you said it. It was funny.
That's what I was getting at. He's their best tackle, but it's not exactly a very talented
They're not very good
line.
at pass protection overall.
They have a bottom 5 offensive line.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity here with this passive play caller and Gannon. Can it get more aggressive? That's what they need to do. Listen, let's call it like this is what they've been doing.
That's what the
couple
film
weeks.
tells you. They're not really that good in pass pro, which is another reason the ball has been coming out so quick. It has to.
So Jason, you were laughing. So
I was just laughing at Greg. You guys are making all these statements, and Greg said, he's okay.
I wasn't.
I'll use the word that
I'm
you
not
can.
putting Taylor
I'll
Moton
use the word that pro personnel people never want you to use in describing a player. He's decent.
Yeah.
You don't say a jag, just a guy.
Right.
Let's be fair. These are the conversations that we were having about Alex Singleton last year. Oh, he's a pretty decent linebacker for the Eagles, right? I mean, when you compare him to the rest of the league, he's Alex Singleton. But
here's
for the
thing,
Eagles,
Jeff.
he was their best linebacker.
Eagles defense has an advantage over the Panthers offensive line. They know this going in. The tape, as Greg would say, tells you this. Will they take advantage? Will they do some of the things that we were told in the offseason, which they really have not done?
Right.
They've not been aggressive like we were expecting. Comes from the Mike Zimmer system. I know he coached under Eberflus too, but where is the aggressiveness? This is an opportunity to do it. This is the Atlanta offensive line was bad too, but yet here's another chance to do it.
It's funny, no matter how often the script says to talk about the other parts of we keep coming back to the Eagles defense. But it's true.
A big issue.
It is absolutely true.
And here's an opportunity.
Now, are the Carolina Panthers a 2 tight end type of team, or will they be? I know they don't have a fullback, correct? They do use a fullback?
But they will play with 2 tight ends a good amount of the time, yeah.
Right, and it's
Ian
not
Thomas
Tremble. It's
right.
Ian Thomas is more their blocking back.
Right, but Tremble could block.
Tremble
can block?
You do everything, right?
Tremble?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Everything.
Tremble will melt your face mask. He's a really good
I
blocker.
remember that line.
But underrated athleticism. And another Temple player, Colin Thompson.
There you go, Colin Thompson. How much time does he see on the field?
He'll dress as the third tight end.
Just the third tight end. So, if you're the Panthers and you're Joe Brady, you're looking at the last 2 weeks of tape. You know you've got a really nice passing game so far, but 2 tight ends and fullback may be what you think you need to do to win the game today.
But they're 11 though, because 11 the Eagles give up a lot of runs in 11, and this is their base offense is 11 with Terrence Marshall, right? So
and then you're going to get that 5-1 front, which is not a good run defense front.
Right. Yeah. Back to the Eagles with their playmakers. Do they need a go-to guy?
They need to go to a gun?
Do they need a go-to player? Right now, as you see the targets spread out, you see Devontae Smith kind of came into his own. We talk about Jalen Reagor being completely absent sometimes from the. He's only got 4 catches fewer than Devontae Smith, and he's second on the team.
It's a lot of targets, and it's a lot of line of scrimmage. It's not many playmaking abilities. Remember, when you see stats at the end of the day, it doesn't a 20-yard stop and you catch it and fall down is the same as a guy that catches a bubble screen and shakes 5 people and runs for 20 yards. It's the same, right? So he doesn't have meat and potatoes of receiver play. Right. It's a lot of screens and getting the ball in the flat. It's not him winning on a post corner or him winning on an in cut or him winning on a go route. It's not those things, and that's where the deception is there with the stats. Yeah. So do they need a number 1 guy? The number 1 guy should be Dallas Goedert. That should be the number 1 guy.
His time right now with Zach Ertz.
The reason he's splitting his time is because of the Jedi mind trick. Zach Ertz is not as good of a blocker as Dallas Goedert. Right. So sometimes it's better as an offensive coordinator to say, you know what, Dallas, you stay here. You're a better blocker for this long developing play, so you get caught out in the blocking game rather than the passing game and let Zach Ertz do that.
No doubt about it. Real quick with what the Panthers do compared to the Eagles offensively, if they're going to blitz a lot, you would think.
If who's going to blitz a lot?
If the Panthers are going to blitz a lot.
I was going to say you can't be talking about the Eagles.
No.
30 seconds.
We're going to have a heck of a show if that happens. But if the Panthers blitz as much as they normally do, is the opportunity for that screen game to get going for the Eagles.
Well, then you have to anticipate when they're going to blitz, obviously, and then because then bodies are gone, to play the screen. Yeah. So that becomes play calling based on film study and anticipation of when they're going to blitz.
Gainwell had a ton of them in training camp, screen catches and just going upfield. That's his
first 3 catches last week came out of empty sets.
Yeah. So and that's where Shaq Thompson comes into play. Right, because a guy, when you're blitzing, him being able to redirect and get to a screen, you may not have that athletic ability out there to be able to counteract the Eagles screen game.
Awesome. Hey, Matt Snell asked a really good question. It's something we haven't talked about, but I think, Greg, that he wants to lean into your tape study. Wants to know how you would compare Carson Wentz's tape this year to what you're seeing out of Jalen Hurts. And obviously a different style. Right. But how about we just start with Carson Wentz this year compared to last year?
Well, it's funny because I watched Wentz this week, and I've got my notes.
So,
I think Wentz has been, for the most part, pretty good this year. Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of things with Wentz when I watch his tape, and we saw last year and the year before with the Eagles as well. I don't think he consistently shows good vision in the pocket. I think there are times he doesn't throw to right receiver in the route progression based on the coverage. We'll see him get stuck in the pocket holding the ball. I thought in this last game in particular, though, as the game progressed, he became more decisive and made some really good throws. Every once in a while, he makes throws that are, you just go, wow, that's a really, really good throw. I would say this year he's been, and I hate to use this word as well because it's one of those words, but he's been solid. You know, he's been, unlike last year with the Eagles when it kind of all went to you know what. I think this year he's played with a little more calmness in the pocket, a little more efficiency. I think it's still a work in progress. And
he has no interceptions, correct? Is that accurate?
I thought he might have had one, but
or
I could be wrong.
Yeah, you know what? I remember he threw the underhanded shovel.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I think he's also kept his fumbles to either one or
no,
zero.
he's playing a lot less randomly and recklessly this year.
Right.
Now,
Well, that
again,
was a
the
big
ankle
thing,
injury,
yeah.
this was he's played a game with that ankle injury. He's going to play again on Monday night against a tough opponent. Monday night will say a lot. They're playing the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, Cecil Snyder wants to know, because you were just touching on this, about the Hurts and Dallas Goedert dynamic. Can you read anything into their either quotes or body language about maybe them not loving that they have to be splitting with each other?
No, I don't see that. Just with the guys and me knowing them, no, I don't see that being a problem. I do think that just from an organization standpoint, I don't think that there ever should be body language between the players, because the organization can flat out make the decision that Dallas Goedert is number one and Zach Ertz is number two. They can flat out make that decision, and the coaching staff can do that by the amount of targets that guy is getting, what positions he's being put in, and I don't see Dallas Goedert being the feature player on our team, and he has the best matchup every weekend.
Right, he should be.
He should be the feature player on our team.
But he can't be the way it's currently.
The way that it's, because there's a lack of definition organizational.
Right. Remember that conversation we had about Alshon Jeffrey last year about, you're paying a guy a certain amount of money, he's on the roster, you kind of feel like you're going to have to get him on the field.
And that happened.
And it seems to continue to be happening. I'll say this, though. Zach Ertz has been an effective player when he's been out there. So it's not apples to apples with the Alshon Jeffrey, but the mentality is certainly that he's on the team, he makes money, we're going to play him.
I understand it, because if you have a young guy in Jalen Hurts, you don't have many veteran wide receivers around you. You got Dallas Goedert, you got Zach Ertz. There's some safety and comfort there, so I see why they're doing it the way they are.
Sure. All right, you gamblers out there, if you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you got to download BetQL. It's the only app you'll need to make the smart bets. Their best bets computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, and gives you the reasoning behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads to over-unders and player prop bets. And if you don't want to use the model, if you're the type of person that likes to do the research by yourself, they got all of the necessary tools for your research needs. Everything from sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboard to track your success. So go to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/ITB. Enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout for 25% off their subscription offerings. And you can get their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. So don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. Now, I've already gone to the BetQL website, and I'm kind of fascinated by, what the public sees. And right now, according to BetQL, you've got 70% of the public money on the Carolina Panthers. That's pretty one-sided right there. BetQL projects that the score today will be Panthers 26, Eagles 22. They give the Panthers a 67.23% odds of winning. And here's what's really fascinating.
See, I think all these companies just make up those numbers.
No. This is
67.23.
It's by computer model.
I just 350,000 scanned bets there.
There you go.
Right?
I mean, really. How many bets?
350,000.
Well, Kaplan's computer model said 68.04.
Also,
that's for my weather model.
If you're a first half bettor, BetQL projects the Panthers to be winning the first half by a 70.83% clip. 70.83%.
They're the home team. They're the better team.
They're the home team, better team. So yeah, there you go. Now we're going to do our own betting and predicting here on Inside the Birds Pregame Live.
I don't do any betting. You know
well,
that,
we
Jeff.
don't. We'll do
I
both.
thought about
We
it
do our
last week.
predictions. We give our predictions.
I thought about it last
All
week.
right, so let's start with our player of the game picks. Jason, I'm going to start with you. Who's going to be the player of the game today?
I'm I'm up and down with this pick. I picked Jalen Hurts earlier in the week, but nothing points to it defensively that he's going to be the player of the game. But I'm going to go with it because I believe that Dak Prescott was able to beat them with some simple throws. The touchdown to Cedric Wilson was very, very simple against the Blitz on the third down.
Okay.
Very RPO-ish. So I think that I'm going to say Jalen Hurts is going to be player of the game. I'm not confident in that because of the Carolina defense, but I'm going to say it. I feel like the team will figure out a way, and he'll be the beneficiary.
All right, Jalen Hurts is your player of the game. Greg,
Yeah.
who is your player of the game?
I think I went with DJ Moore, did I not?
You did.
I just feel unless the Eagles were to make some meaningful changes in their defensive structure, that throws are going to be there. Throws versus zone are going to be there, and that Moore will have pretty good numbers.
Yeah, he's had a great year so far, so that would make a lot
The
of
catch
sense.
will be there too.
Yeah. After seeing Tyreek Hill last week, I can't, blame you for picking up Panthers wide receiver. Adam, who do you have as the player of the game?
Well, taking a page out of Greg's book, if they're not going to be aggressive on defense, then Sam Darnold will be the guy who's going to be my player of the game. We haven't seen it. Unless you make him, when he was with the Jets, when he would hold on the ball and be indecisive, no one's been able to do that. Joe Brady's doing a great job, so I'm going to go with Sam Darnold as my player of the game.
All right, so my player of the game was predicated on a matchup that we have just recently found out does not exist anymore. I had picked Eagles defensive end Josh Sweat, knowing that they were going to be without Cam Irving and thinking that the Brady Christensen guy was going to be lining up at left tackle. Now, maybe they'll do some
Well, that's okay because
switcheroo
Taylor
there.
Moton's just okay.
Yeah, Taylor Moton's just okay. So it's okay. Maybe I'll just stick with it.
So it's
Is that a 6 out of 10 on a grade? I'm trying to equate that to what this score is.
just okay.
It has been kind of a quiet start
to
for
see.
Eagles defensive ends. I think
Yeah.
down and distance has a
Yep.
lot to do with
Yep.
that, and the fact
Yep.
that teams have ran the ball on the Eagles really successfully. But today, I think they are going to make a few adjustments, and I just feel like it's going to be a big Josh Sweat day. I mean, they paid him all that money, and
All right.
he's supposed to be a good pass
And
rusher. And
he did had one last week. He
got
had
it.
a great one. Unfortunately, he was offside.
yes, he negated his own sack.
Well, Rodney got an illegal touching too last year, legal contact, and he had a
It
last week.
was, yeah. There's been a lot of those penalties and self-inflicted wounds, as the Eagles like to say, that have contributed to their losses. All right, as we sit here today at Bet Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, last I checked, unless it's moved, the Eagles once again are the underdog, which has been the case for all 5 games that they played. The Panthers were 3-point favorites. The over-under is 45. All right, so it's not necessarily predicted to be a very high-scoring game. And, of course, Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, you can enjoy $7 food specials in Jack's Bar and Grill, half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. Not only that, but when the Birds score, you score when you are actively planning with your Rush Rewards card in their Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. So remember, you can be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And like we said, there's a lot of good trends, a lot of good statistical data that Greg doesn't buy into in BetQL. That's okay, because we all have accounts, even if Greg doesn't. So go to BetQL, find those great statistical trends, get those the algorithms that tell you where to put your money, and we will tell you who's going to be the winner of this game. Right now, Greg, I will start with you. Give me your prediction for this game.
When you asked me on Friday, I picked the Panthers, so I guess I have to say that, and I think I picked them 31-27.
Yes.
I have a feeling the Eagles could well win this game, but I'm going to stick with my pick. I think the Eagles will score. As we've discussed much of the show, the big question comes down to their defense, but I would look for this to be a higher scoring game, And normally when I say that, it turns out to be the exact opposite.
No,
But
you had it high scoring last week. It sure was.
Yeah. But I'll go 31-27 Panthers.
I will tell you that our team here at Public Square in Rebel Hill, who create the graphics that put our predictions on, thank you for sticking with it.
Oh,
and not changing that.
I'm in the business, Jeff. I get that.
You get it.
I get
You
that.
understand.
I get that the graphic was made, so we were not going to change anything.
He's in the business and he'll give
I've done this for a few years.
All right.
Only 42 of them.
Zach and James like, hallelujah.
Do that all.
Jason, what do you got?
I have the Birds figuring out a way to win this game, and I believe I have them 24-23.
Yeah, I like that. A little drama there. 24-23
a little
Eagles.
drama, a little last drive. We'll see.
All right, we'll see what happens. Adam, what
I got it. Tight game. Eagles 20, Panthers 24.
He loves to give you the losing team first. Adam picking against the Eagles. He says Panthers 24-20.
No, but here's why. Gannon has not shown me the willingness to be aggressive. Now, if he's aggressive today, different story. They could pull off the upset. They've got a puncher's chance here. Sirianni could help by running the ball a little bit.
They've got a Tyson Fury chance here.
Is that his real last name, by the way?
I don't know.
Sounds like a
All I know is he won last night in the 11th round.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just don't trust Gannon yet to call the game right. So what do you got?
All right, you're like, I'm from Missouri. You got to show me before
show
I
me
give
state.
you. All right, there you go. All right, Ted Lasso. I am actually, after 4 straight weeks of picking against the Eagles, I am going to pick the Eagles today. I think they're going to win a tight one. I can see this being won on a late Jake Elliott field goal. I have the Eagles winning 26-23, and they better get this one because the next 1-2 weeks don't look so good as we sit here right now. So that's going to be it. I say Eagles win 26-23. Before you put your money down, make sure you come down to Bet Rivers Casino and do that, or use the app. Want to thank our friends at Bet Rivers, at BetQL, Sky Motor Cars, the teams at Rebel Hill and Public Square. Make sure you check out the next Inside the Birds podcast. It's going to drop Monday morning at 6 a.m. Of course, Q&A with Quentin Mickell and Jason Avant Thursday, 6 a.m. as well. We'll be back Thursday, 5 o'clock p.m. to preview the big showdown against the defending Super Bowl champs. Everybody enjoy the game. Have a great rest of the weekend.